Select. Select.
Welcome everyone back to a wonderful week of Rocket League. We are back with the ATL Open Series with qualifier number 3 with, of course, Rocket League 2 versus 2. Welcome everybody to the show and to the wonderful things we have here at Skillshot. My name, of course, Troy Pibcast Welling. Next to me going to be Trevor Confused Caribou McNeil, as always. And we're excited to bring you this action once again for another week of qualifiers.
Yeah, I'm excited for our last week of qualifiers because it's been such a great competition in the first couple of weeks. We've had a lot of new teams, new faces really show up and try to assert themselves into the elite status that we've seen a lot of these returning names and faces. And I'm really excited to see if we're going to have anyone break into that category here tonight.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'll be fun to see. We already were looking through the teams just to see kind of a brief moment of skill and see how everybody kind of matches up going into this qualifier. And there's quite a few teams that we have no idea how well they're going to play this week. So that is a really nice thing to see. It's always nice to see new teams, obviously, every week. It levels up the competition, lets us see who's kind of going to come out on top week after week. Because, I mean, we have teams like Top Cougars, who at one point, like the rest of these teams, right, where we didn't know who they were. They came into the tournament. We're like, oh, these guys seem pretty good. And then they won an entire month of qualifiers and the grand finals. So it just kind of shows you that, you know, some of these no-name teams, I say no-name like respectfully, not disrespectfully.
Right.
Some of these teams that I don't know about coming into this tournament could be fantastic. So that'll be awesome to see what we're looking forward to in this event, to see what teams are going to come out on top.
Yeah, and there's just so much that you can look into with all the rosters and all the team names and the individual players that we've seen filter through. But, as we've gone through in the beginning qualifier number 1 through qualifier 2 into tonight, and we take a look at, the kind of the schedule of how we got here to this point, it was just a whole slew of these teams that we've seen a name here, a name there, a new teammate, a +1, someone that they've seen playing in one of the events prior to and just teaming up. But you can see with all the qualifiers that we've had, with that final one being the last one shown, $175 for each single qualifier. And we haven't had any returning names claim that prize pool like we did last month, where it was just Top Cougars that took everything. This month, it's been a different team every week.
Yeah, and for this week at least, we'll see who is going to make their name to make it to the finals, of course. That starts next week. Top 2 or 3 spots this week will guarantee themselves into the finals next week. It'll be the top 2 from this qualifier. So you do have to finish in the grand finals. So it is an important week, of course. And qualifiers for the month of August, of course, will be throughout this one, and we'll come back next week. This is, of course, the very last qualifier for these teams. So if you haven't already qualified, it gets harder. Like we talked about this before, first and second qualifier take 3 teams out of it. So, the top 2 in the grand finals and the third place team in each one of those. And then qualifier 3 is where it goes to the nitty gritty, and the top 2 teams are the only teams that qualify. So that would be kind of important to see who makes it to that standpoint. But of course, if one of the teams like Top Cougars makes it back to the grand finals, I'm interested to see how that works out, because it is a different duo under the name Top Cougars, but they have already qualified before. But let's go ahead and take a look at the pricing on what these guys are actually playing for going into the finals, of course. And of today's qualifier, $125 up top for first place, $50 for second. That's just for the qualifier. They're also playing for some money for the finals.
Yeah, and this is the conversation that we have every other week, right? Where it's like, yes, first, second place gets the prize money. That's great and all. But there's a consolation prize in third place. But as you said, this week, there is no consolation like, hey, you're going to go to the grand finals. Congrats, you got third place out of this. You have to be with that red trophy or that blue trophy right there to be able to play again next week. Unless, of course, one of our previous teams gets into the grand finals, in which case it falls to the next team available. But because of the fact that we don't have, hardly any returning teams out of the 34, 35 teams that registered here today, there is a very, very slim margin that you could be in that position. So you have to get into that grand finals, like you said today. It's very important that you play to get to that. That is the end-all, be-all objective you should have if you want to try to play again next week, where there's a little more money on the line. I think a $500 prize pool in between top 3 paid out once again. But it's so important to be able to take an event like today, where you just recognize that there is an opportunity for you to open up, because there are new duos that come in, good players that we've seen time and time again, but they've got a new duo. So you don't necessarily know how well they're going to play together, how well their synergy is. And frankly, that leaves the door wide open.
Yeah, it does. And that's the fun part about tonight's tournament. Like we said, since there's so many names, we have to wonder what those keys to victory are for these teams going into this week, because we already see those top performers like Top Cougars, like Tech Oz's team with Jalading. That's what we're officially going to call him at this point. There's some repeating factors going into this tournament, but the keys to victory that we've seen from them and from repeating teams like the Top Cougars last month is the pace of play. You got to play really fast. You have to always be ready to challenge and be on top of your skill. But you have to know when the best time is to counterattack. And the most important thing that I saw in previous weeks is just when an opponent makes a mistake, you have to be able to capitalize on it. And that's not being like, you just get a shot off onto the net. Like you have to score off of that mistake. Like when you go later into this tournament and those games start to become harder, your opponents will make less and less mistakes. So once you find a mistake, like a double commit, like an overcommit on offense, just in general, you have to be able to score that, because that is one of your only ways to stay in the game if you're facing one of these top like offensive teams like Top Cougars.
Yeah, and creating the pacing and creating the momentum of that is exactly, it's a really good point, but it's also a thing that you have to consider in the sense of we've seen really good teams pin opponents backs against the wall to the defensive zone, and it is so damn hard to get out of that spot once you're there. There are only a few very select amount of teams that can actually get out of that situation and somehow pull a reversal where they're boost starved and they manage to get out of defense and turn it to a counterattack and try to find a way back into the attack and make something out of nothing. And that is kind of hand in hand with controlling momentum. Is if you get a team backs against the wall, then you get to dictate the pace of the game. You get to take all of this boost away from the opponents, and they don't really get to be able to match or keep up with the pace that you're setting.
Yeah, and boost starving obviously in 2v2 is much more difficult to handle if you're the defending team, because obviously there's more boosts on the field for only two of you. But if you're stuck on defense,
Right,
and all you have are those corners and they just constantly take one or two, it basically guarantees one of your players is always going to be out of boost. So it is really important to hold that up. But of course, if you have any teams that you like following into this week, or you have new names that you want, make sure to add us on social media. Bring up the conversation. Let us know in Twitch chat as well who you're rooting for this week. You hashtag IATLGG on Twitter. Follow Skillshot at Skillshot Media, I believe, on Twitter as well. Hashtag ATLOpen on Twitter too. Join the conversation. But of course, you can also follow at Pibcast 3Bs and Confused Caribou. I did it the wrong way. I had it. We had it so good last week, and then this week I'm like, nope, not that way. But follow us on Twitter, follow Skillshot, and of course, hopefully this comes next month as well. We've been doing this for Rocket League, I think, for 4 months now. We had 3 months of 2v2s and a month of 3v3s so far, I think. Mathematically,
May, June,
not the
July,
best.
August. Yeah.
Well, we'll figure it out. But yeah, it's been a lot of Rocket League, a lot of good times, and now we're finally getting some repeating teams and some fun things to see. And that's kind of the best thing now, is we get to see what teams are shining. We already have an idea now. I'm missing out on the Velabungi, the Postizzi boys. There's a couple teams, like Mektos. I'm sure Mektos is not happy with how they went last week, because if you didn't know already, there was basically a professional duo, 2 players of Ghost Gaming, played last week and did not make it to qualification. So that kind of shows you skill level last week going into this week. There's a lot on the line, especially when there's only top 2 spots.
Yeah, a lot of really good teams and players that we've seen, and Vo being one of those teams that we saw making their return. They would lose in qualifier number 1 to the eventual champions in Amberguesa. They lost in the quarterfinals there, so trying to get back into a little bit of a better positioning coming out of this one. Of course, that qualifier 1, that run was brutal. Like that, the half of that bracket was just absolutely brutal, and it stacked like all the best teams into that side of the bracket. So very difficult to get out of that side, and Vo trying to make their comeback claim here today.
Yeah, and we'll see if that can be possible. Of course, the Hangovers also having a stark early defeat in the this is actually their first qualifier, so I went and looked back their history. They're 2-2. I wanted to see how they were in Rocket League, but this is their first qualifier they've played so far, so this is the first time we're going to be able to see them, and it is going to be against, of course, like you said, Vo, who did end up leaving or losing to that grand finals team. So this is a good team potentially. We'll see if Hangovers can manage that and handle that for their first game of the tournament, and see when that starts. Looking at, of course, everything is randomly seeded. So Top Cougars, unfortunately, being seeded 32nd because they signed up late, I think, have to play through the first round, while many other teams are already in the second round playing. So that is unfortunate. Obviously, I don't expect Top Cougars to lose in the first round whatsoever.
Right.
So, but whoever is that team, Oi, it is an unfortunate matchup for your very first round of the tournament.
Well, always interesting because you see we see Spud Gun come back out of that, which is a player on a duo that's already qualified for the grand finals next week. So like, there's at least a little bit of something there. And, Spud Gun are probably not going to be too broken up if they don't actually get out of this and, get back into a qualifying position once again, because they don't have to, already been done. But very difficult matchup for them to go up against the second top Cougars squad. But I mean, looking at the way the bracket shook out, as you said, completely randomized. There are 2 round 1 matchups that we have to go into round 2 where everybody else is waiting. And there is going to be a lot of interesting matchups in that round 2. Just very briefly scrolling through, there's some good ones.
Yes, there is. And like we already talked about, there's so many new teams in this tournament. So I'm sure there's good ones without us even knowing at this point. But we are into our first game. Vo, of course, against the Hangovers on the blue side. Vo already has a chance here. Good block coming out from Mint. Jewel Pod to stop that one. But the backup shot from Cravo was there and able to score their first goal in just 20 seconds. That was a lot of offensive pressure from Team Vo here, or Va, whatever they're called. I'm sure they're still ecstatic to have the lead to start this one off, though, with that offensive momentum. We already talked about it in our keys to victory earlier on, but keep that pace of play up, and it'll be much, much easier for you to be able to control that going into the rest of the game.
Yeah, and I feel like the synergy between these two is going to carry them a good distance. As we saw, they did a pretty good job in the first qualifier. Revo just taking that one off the wall and being able to bounce it off the roof, get it in position. And sometimes this just showcases, the fact that this is a community open. You get players of all skill level across the board, and you never know exactly who you're going to match up against, because you could be just a casual, for fun player and unfortunately get matched up against someone like Top Cougars in round 1. It's just sometimes the luck of the draw, but it's very interesting to watch the dynamic of all of these players and being able to see the different skill levels and really understand how good some of these players actually are, because it puts it in perspective when you can actually watch them kind of really be scaled against the rest of the competition. Like, it's hard to see how good 2 teams are when they are both incredibly good.
Yeah, it is. It's constantly just back and forth the chances and the ball being up in the air. There's a lot of things going on. Once you have 2 very good teams fighting for the ball back and forth, Mid-Jewel Pod struggling a little bit to try and keep control of this ball, and just kind of leads to a chance here for Team Vo, but Crevo is just going to take that ball away and hit it to the other side of the corner. So now it is a chance here. Basically wide open net. If he got Crevo out of the way, they're able to demo him or bump him out of the way. Could have had a shot onto net, but alas, still no chances here for Hangovers just yet, as Vo is just patiently waiting. I mean, like I said, they're just waiting for the mistakes that they've already seen out of Hangovers so far. You see a double commit there, just a very simple one, but it is a double commit nonetheless, which could always lead to attacking chances. So that's what they're looking for ideally, and the overarching from Hangovers might cause them to keep getting scored on throughout the rest of this game. But after those first 2 goals, it has been quite stable at least. They haven't had many offensive chances, but they've at least stopped the creation a little bit from Team Vo here.
Yeah, certainly a slowed down from the Vo side of the field, but they're still spending a decent amount of time here on this side of the field and creating some amount of offensive pressure. And as you said, just kind of waiting, poised to strike for that next mistake. But, watching as it has really kind of stabilized and flattened out, that it's just a good sign for the Hangovers that they're kind of getting an understanding of how they need to play and making those adjustments on the fly as to be able to beat their opponents, which is a thing that a lot of teams are going to have to be able to do, especially with these series being best of 3 across the board. It is something that you have to do very quickly, is adapt to the play style and understand the weaknesses of your opponents to be able to come out with the W.
And one thing I did not notice going into this week that I was just looking through, and I saw this record of this team in this tournament, or in 2v2 in Rocket League in total, I was like 46-2 is quite insane to have in 2v2 Rocket League. As we see a nice shot coming there from Mevo with the creation from Crevo in the addition here. Just a nice pass upfield. But Team Night Guard and G's have already qualified for the finals. They're 46-2 in duos, and Amber Geisha is one of the only 2 teams that has beaten them in their history of being a 2v2. So this is obviously an insanely good team, that I'm excited to look for into the future. They are, of course, already qualified, so if they take top 2 spots, 3rd or 4th place team could get a chance at that. But that is another team that I did not realize on the books right now is a very, very solid team.
Yeah, going to be one of those 2 teams that we talked about. There is, a very select few that are returning that have this position where it kind of could leave something open for a 3rd, 4th place potential team to qualify for next week, because only top 2 are going to make it. That's Nygaard Jesus, one of those 2. And I think if the bracket's favorable for them, then potentially they'd have a better chance. But as we said, qualifier number 1, that bracket was ruthless. Mevo going to take this one side to the next after a nice little steal back on the own side and taking this one in. Good little bump up over the top. The defense just not home. And that's another thing that you have to deal with in 2v2s is that there's no 3rd man back.
Yeah, that's true. That's probably the hardest part. If you play a lot of 3s, a lot of people in Rocket League just tend to prefer 2s over 3s anyways. So 2s tends to be the vast majority of the time, but 3v3 is obviously competitive Rocket League. That's what they play, and it's much easier to play as a team considering you have that 3rd man, have that anchor role to help you out in cases where you need to just boom the ball downfield so you can get boost, or to have shot creation, being that playmaker of the team in the back. That is something that we'll see, of course, but we'll see if Hangovers can get, I think that is their first shot on net so far this game with only 35 seconds left. Maybe a bit of creation right there. Crevo just barely misses out onto his teammate, though, as they try to go for a little bit of style here for the 5th goal of the game. As of right now, this looks pretty locked in and loaded, considering there's only 2 shots total, I think, from this team. Nice passing play. It was a little bit slow against better teams that probably get saved a little bit, so maybe Crevo and Mevo have to figure that one out a little bit. Crevo had that one basically next to his car that whole time, but nonetheless, still pans out, still works for the team, so they are going to be up 5-0, are going to probably win. I would say at this point, confidently win game 1. And of course, it's the best of 3 series all the way up until the grand finals. So we'll see. They still have a chance here, the Hangovers team does, but so far, not looking too great for them as they make another defensive mistake. Wide open net, 6-0 for Mevo here. And it's starting to look a little bit worrisome leading into game 2.
Yeah, after such a good middle stage of this game where Hangovers looked like they were being able to kind of flatten out what Vo was doing. They were able to slow them down, and granted, Vo was just kind of burning the clock and just playing the ball around. They weren't really too adamant on taking shots and creating opportunities because they already had the 2-0, 3-0 lead. But in the sense of that's something from the defensive perspective, you can look as a positive for the Hangovers, but on the other side, just looking at what Vo was able to do is that they were able to create opportunities whenever they wanted to. I mean, they were able to find the weaknesses on the defensive front and be able to take the ball down from end to end and then play it off to your teammate. That last goal was a little bit of a sloppy hand. I have to take a look at some of the replays to watch basically the offensive prowess there between Vo and the synergy that they were able to set up. But it's all, just kind of work out the kinks here, kind of iron out all your mistakes early on. Because, yeah, as you said, earlier stages of the bracket, going to be a little bit simpler. But once you do really boil down the competition, that is when you absolutely have to be on point, have to be on your game, and you can't afford to make any mistakes.
Yeah, because a lot of those goals from Team Vo weren't exactly the craziest goals. They were just kind of bloopers that just barely got into the net due to kind of lack of defense, I guess, thereof on Hangover's team, and just couldn't quite get to the ball fast enough. So, yeah, like you said, it's nice to win a game 6-0, but it wasn't like you had some crazy shots and had some crazy teamwork. They had a decent goal that they panned together there for, I think, the 5th goal of that game where they had a little bit of passing play. But like we said, the more you go into the tournament, the harder it's going to get, and those kind of goals will not be able to go through. So that's something they have to worry about. As far as the first round or the second round goes, Night Guard and G's, or do you say Jesus? Are they Night Guard and Jesus? Is that what they're called? Okay, Night Guard and G's. Yeah, that's what I said. I thought you said Jesus for the first run. No. But yeah, Night Guard and G's advanced themselves to round 3 already. One of the first teams to get their LGBT there as well. And we just await to see how the rest of round 2 goes and to see how this matchup goes. Of course, game number 2 here going to start just briefly as Team Vo looks to try and advance themselves to round 3. So far, at least how the bracket's panning out, the top half is going to be rough again from what I'm seeing, because top Cougars are going to be up there, Night Guard and G's are going to be up there, and Team Vo more than likely going to be up there as well.
Yeah, gonna make things interesting and a little spicy here. Vo out 4 seconds off the rip are gonna get the first goal scored inside the left post. So this is just going to be a good start again for their offense. Just try to get an early lead and see what they can do off of that one. Kickoff gonna be a little bit of a pump there onto Mint, but I think Vo just understand exactly what they want to do, what they need to do, and they're trying. See, this is the thing that I do appreciate for what they are attempting to do. They are attempting the passing plays. They're trying these pre-jumps. They're trying the aerial connections between one and the other. It's just, again, a little sloppy on the deliverance of it, but the attempt is there, and that's what counts for now, because you can still try to do this later on in the bracket stages, but you got to make sure that you're actually hitting these shots, hitting these connections.
Yeah, Hangover's looking like they're playing much faster this game and much better. Just like a simple games change. I don't know if their little brothers were playing last game, but they seem a lot better already. As far as how this has started here, they've definitely had some more chances. Ooh. That's a great shot coming out from Mevo, being able to redirect that one off the pass from Crevo there. And yeah, that's just a great play. I mean, really nice pass upfield, and then Mevo on the flip, able to get that one out of probably an easy save for the player on Hangover there of here. And now that brings them back to a 2-0 lead. Last game, they Hangovers, let 2 goals in early, didn't let them score for a while, and then kind of bled a little bit at the end of the game as well. So if they can find that opportune moment here in the mid part of the game where they didn't let up a lot of goals, maybe they can start to score a little bit more. Suddenly there's hope for this team, but they have to just be able to stop Team Vo, and so far they have not been able to do that, and especially after 2 whiffs on defense, that one just kind of glides into the back of the net.
Nice, a cheeky little chip shot there. Was not too far out. Both defenders in position, just couldn't get up high enough. And I mean, well taken, well aimed shot just to be able to send that blooper right over the top and put them up 3-0 now. This is Vo again. Give credit to Hangovers for what seems like they're trying to increase pace to match what Vo is doing, but I think it's playing into the hand here of Vo because their offense has started to come online here a little bit earlier on in this second game.
Yeah, they do look much stronger. You're seeing them already communicating a little bit better as well. I still think trying to get the freestyle clips in, of course. We already saw, I believe it was Mevo over there trying to get a flip reset earlier on, just barely voiding out. Decent fake there. Gets him to backflip. He's going to take this one off the wall and try to go for potentially another flip reset. Gets it on the bottom wheels here. Does not have his flip, it looks like, though. So Mevo's going to miss out on that. And due to a double commit, never mind. They're going to stay safe for now, but that is where you could have seen that punishment from Hangovers.
Yeah, and a decent recovery. Watch Mevo come back and be able to make that save and a good read on that. But yeah, that is a huge mistake right there that for now goes unpunished, but you can't let that happen again once you get to the later stages of tournament play, because that is just something teams will take advantage of 10 out of 10 times when you get down to the quarterfinals, semifinals. But Mevo is trying to get these flip resets, attempting, but they just can't quite get it.
Yeah, and you still see them trying to connect. You saw a nice redirect right there as well, but at this point, they obviously know, I'm pretty sure Vo has this in the grasp. They don't really have a worry that they're going to lose this game, so they want to keep trying to get these to go, and to be honest, this is a perfect game to try that. Mevo just gets a nice air dribble goal there and brings that to the back of the net, but this is a nice game to try it. Try and, work on your own skills a little bit here. Try and get those flip reset practice in, and because obviously you're going to win this game. I mean, Hangovers has had maybe 3 or 4 shots total in 2 games, so you're not really worried about how this is going to pan out on their side. So this is a lot of chance creation for them to, like I said, just kind of practice up on those skills. And going later in the tournament, it could be real useful to be able to juke out one of the really strong defenders, someone like Kieran. It's very difficult to get past him in the net, but if you're able to get a good flip reset, and you might be able to get past him.
Yeah, and this is, just that platforms you talk about, being able to practice that, get yourself warmed up so that you kind of understand what you're missing out on, the small little adjustments you have to make. But again, Vo, just their offense certainly looking in better shape here for game number 2. Granted, game 1 was, a 6-0 win, but like, as we said, after game 1, it wasn't like it was a lot of impressive setups, a lot of good, pre-jumps and aerials. There wasn't anything that was too flashy for all things considered. I mean, it was just opportune goals that they were able to find a hole in the defense and then go on from there. But starting to find a little bit more communication, but now a defensive breakdown It's going to let off here, get the first one on the other side. Hangover's going to try to find their offensive answer with a minute and a half left to go.
Yeah, and there's been some glimmers of hope here for Hangovers. They've had some decent dribbling. They've been able to get some close shots this game, especially. But the problem is their defense is just not there. That's the biggest issue from both games, is that they just have made a couple of really bad whiffs, unfortunately, in net that both of them really should. I mean, it's as simple as a double jump and some boost to save a couple of these goals that they've let in. So it is unfortunate because they really could have had a much better chance if they kept these games low scoring, kept them at 2 or 3 goals even a piece, and suddenly it's a much simpler game for them to try and combat. But yeah, with their lack of offensive creation and the amount of offensive creation Team Bo has had, it's very difficult to try and find a comeback back into this game. So we'll see if that is going to be something that this team looks for in the future. But as of now, it doesn't look like they're going to advance themselves into the rest of this qualifier. And Team Vote is going to ease their way towards the second round, or the third round, I should say, in which they hope to avoid a couple really scary third round opponents like Night Cougars, just combine them at this point, like Night Guard and G's, and probably Top Cougars there. They're in round 2 playing their game now, I think, but they're more than likely expected to be in the third round. We already talked about Xerox, or Zero X. That was the grand finalist last week, and unfortunately lost to Jalading's team, I believe. Or no, not last week. Jalading's team was first week, but they made a grand finals, lost to the Gamblers team last week, and they look to try and get back into the round 3 this go round. But there are still, of course, you expect 3 or 4 of those teams to kind of automatically qualify themselves into the rest of this tournament. So yeah, ideally you just hope to miss out on those matchups early.
Yeah, and that's one of those interesting perspectives you talk about, looking at teams that have qualified already, that are advancing through the bracket, as Vo here is going to be able to punch their ticket going to the next round. And Hangovers at this point was accepting defeat, recognizing zeros on the board, a final score of 5-1, 6-1 there at the end, but it's still a good showing from Vo, being able to come back on and know exactly where they have to pick up, where they left off last time they were participating in an open qualifier. But looking at some of these teams as they've advanced through, you talk about the Night Cougars, if you will. You look at Kiernan, you look at Smokes that have now teamed up as Top Cougars. They've already both individually qualified. So it's like, what are you doing here other than just playing just because you can?
Yeah, playing to get some money in the qualifiers, what they're here for. They just want that extra bit of cash, combining ranks once again. But let's go and take a look at the game replays, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. And in partnership with CMG, of course, this entire event would be done without him having this wonderful setup for the bracket for us. But, so far, I mean, it's a lot of just Team Vo. Obviously, they just had most of the shot creation, most of the offensive creation in this game and in the series in general. So a lot of it was down to them. But something we talked about in previous weeks is that gap, I guess you could say, in skill, that when you go into the tournament, like let's say next round, Team Vo advances, they're like, sick, we got a great matchup. And then we go into the next round and they face the Night Guard and G's, and they're suddenly like shell shocked by the difference in competition level. Like that's where it's really difficult to transition from, is going from a series like that into which you had an easy time to score goals. There wasn't the craziest of shot creation towards you. And then you go against one of these teams that we've been talking about that has been nonstop offense. It's much scarier.
Yeah, very difficult to be able to adjust, to go from quite literally 0 to 100 real quick in a matchup like that. But they already have their opponent set up in a different squad. So theoretically, they don't have to worry so much about that. But as we talk about with the round 2, is essentially where most of this bracket has started. A handful of teams have already advanced into round 3. Now, Vo joining the ranks of those teams. But a very interesting one is the one at the very top of this bracket, because, again, the top half of the bracket is going to be very interesting. One of which, including Tech Oz, who's there in the 4th bracket down, which would put them in a quarterfinals matchup with a winner of a series that we're looking at right here. Zero X is very close to the same as well. But this matchup coming up between Lovely Gar and Top Cougars, we've seen Lovely Gar before. They've been around. They're always kind of a round 3 quarterfinals fringe team, but they haven't actually broken that threshold to get into that elite status. I talk about those teams that are trying to get to that point. That's one of them. But playing against Top Cougars is the hardest possible way I mean, this is for the League of Legends community. This is Fabi right here. The top Cougars are the gatekeeper of this community, and they're just
Yeah, no
not letting
kidding.
anybody into that elite status.
And something even more to note is if by some miracle chance that lovely Gar gets past top Cougars, they immediately go to face Night Guard and G's. The next game after this matchup is probably the hardest game in the tournament. Like if Top Cougars wins this game, this is a grand finals tournament or grand finals match in round 3 because we're gonna have Night Guard and G's against Top Cougars in the top half. And why I hate random seeding sometimes because you get like tournaments like this where you get some of the best teams have to go out early and there's not really anything they can do about it. And you have some of the higher seeds like Lovely Gar, who's probably not played a game in any of our qualifiers so far. I lied. Actually, they've played quite a few, but they've lost previously, actually, to Top Cougars and 0x. So they have had some really unlucky seeding so far. They're top seed, and they get Top Cougars as the 32nd seed in the tournament. That's rough.
Yeah, that's a real tough break. And almost as if they were listening and this whole thing was scripted, wink. Tech and Jalading on Team Tech Oz have been eliminated. So that's a very interesting that is going to be how that develops. We talked about the praise for Kiernan in our last game and the adjustment teams are going to have to make to deal with a player like this one. And Kiernan showcasing exactly why, just taking that one solo to the house. 11 seconds in, Top Cougars get the first blood.
I'm still trying to figure out what is happening. Like, obviously, we just see a nice Kiernan double tap. That's just kind of what I'm used to. So I'm not really too worried about that. But I'm just, that's crazy that they lost in the second round. And like you said, it just becomes even more crazy for how the bracket develops. But of course, round 3 is going to be, like we've already said, the grand finals matchup. It's going to be, without a doubt, Top Cougars versus Night Guard and G's. Like, I have no worry about that in general. Also, as soon as you see someone with a topper or a flag or anything, you can kind of already determine their skill level in Rocket League. I'm not flaming. This is no flame. But if you use a topper, if you use a flag, you're not as highly skilled as some others might be, is what I'm saying. Because it does get in your way when you're trying to dribble. It does get in your way. That's why people don't use toppers and flags, if you didn't know. It just gets in your way of trying to see the ball. So that's why people don't do it. But as of now, it's not looking too hot here for Lovely Gar. As Smokes has a potential chance. This is a rough game, no matter what. It doesn't matter who would have been in the other seat of Top Cougars. That was a really nice play, actually, though. Coming out, Lanky Man's like, yeah, I'll show you my top hat, buddy. It sends this one back into the back of the net. He's a grand champ, so I got to give him that. It's not like they're bad players. I can't really, I said no flame. I just said it's much easier to see when you don't have a topper or flag. But now I see the fit. Now I understand why he's got the topper. He's got the tuxedo decal on. He's got the top hat. Lanky Man's actually looking pretty fly out here, and I can say I'm wrong. I can say I'm sorry to him because he looks pretty dapper out there.
I just gotta respect the wardrobe. You know, dress like you're going for a job interview, and this is potentially exactly what that is. Maybe this car right here is going to be one that we see on the RLCS next year. I don't know, but being able to come out like that and get a great connection against Top Cougars here, and again enters the conversation of, yes, we know Smokes is good. Yes, we know Kiernan's good. Yes, they both qualified for the grand finals with their own other teammates from Qualifier 1 and 2 respectively, but how much have they actually played together? How much synergy do they actually have? I mean, granted, it's 2v2 Rocket League, so, like, you understand the fundamental mechanics that it's pretty simple, straightforward. You know, just hit ball into net, try to break down defense. Forehead.
To be fair, though, they also played... Kieran and Smokes were part of the undefeated threes team last month, so they obviously have a lot of synergy in comparison because they are the only team in Skillshot history to be able to have won an entire month of qualifiers and the grand finals. So they already have that synergy. What I'm interested in now, though, is if they do qualify, do they want to choose to stay on this team together or go back with their teammates and just kind of form a different Top Cougars team once again? But as of right now, Top Cougars scores once again. Kiernan just gets it past one, able to just slot this one into the back of the net for their third goal of this game. And like we said, I'm just really excited for that round 3 matchup. That is absolutely insane that we might be able to get to see probably the top 2 teams now. Well, actually, easily the top 2 teams in the tournament go against each other in round 3. But a nice slot in once again by Lanky. He's still looking dapper out there, and it's working out for this team as he finds a second goal for his team and gets them closer to coming back.
Yeah, Maddie with the really
Oh,
good
and the
setup
what
there
a
on the
save.
speed flip. Yeah.
God, the what a save.
Wow.
Oh, the okay. Oh, it's serious now, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, here we
That's
go.
it's out.
A single goal difference.
They've made a mistake here, I think.
Is that the enabler here for this squad? Which team is now going to step up and accent themselves into this one? Because this is seeming like it's going to be quite the scrappy matchup between these two, especially in the chat log between them.
Yeah.
But I almost want to take a pause on conversation that you just briefly introduced into with Kieran and Smokes. What do you do if you qualify with this duo? Kieran qualifying with Stealth, Smokes qualifying with Toxic. Those are both really good +1s, but so is this duo. Like, which one do you go with?
Yeah, it is rough. I mean, I think you stay with the other two duos just because it kind of, I guess that's more money for the top Cougars prize pot at the end of the day, considering Toxic was their third, I believe, in the 3v3s last month. But Stealth looked fantastic in their series. Kieran and Stealth just absolutely dominated. So it's definitely an interesting situation they have put themselves in. When you're too good on multiple teams to qualify too many times, it is rough. You know, it's gotta be something there. I'm surprised we didn't see a what a save come out from top Cougars. But like I said, it is dangerous because at once you trash talk, it doesn't matter what game, the other team tries harder. Like, without a doubt, they are going to try their hearts out. So that's why I said that might be a mistake, because you don't want to see Smokes and Kieran at their best, especially when you leave an open goal. The what a saves are going to come out.
Oh, there it is. I mean, like, yeah, as soon as you hit that, like, that is just asking and opening the door for it, because
don't trash talk Smokes of all people.
That is the point now where you lean forward in the chair, you get a little more serious. There's a single bead of sweat drips down the forehead, and it's like, oh, yeah, we are trying now. Like, this is how it's gonna go. And then you open up the trash talk. You continue to do so. It just makes things interesting.
Oh, they missed.
There's no way you missed that. Oh, that should have been one back, and this should be a 1-goal game. But instead, we're on the other side of the field again.
Oh, that's a wide open net, though. So it is going to be back to one apiece here. This is a fun game. Let me tell you, this is one of the most fun games we've had in Skill Shot in recent history. Because not many people decide to bring out the trash talk in tournaments, but I think it's wonderful. I think it makes both teams play better. I think it just puts on for a more fun experience overall. And it's not like they're being super negative to each other or crazy. They're just saving each other. And he said Kieran and Carey when. If you've looked at Smokes' history in Rocket League so far, you'd probably doubt that a little bit, because Smokes has been on the top of this scene for 5 months now. Another close chance there from Lovely Gar, but they still have to find one more goal in 10 seconds. Otherwise, top Cougars are going to have the last what a save in this game.
Yeah. Oh, crossbar. Going to give a little bit of love, and the right upright as well, but Kieran will punch one in. And that theoretically should be the decisive goal here for this game number 1. 6 seconds to go, 2-goal lead.
Oh, man.
The top Cougars are looking to take this one and what a save their way to game number 2.
Oh, and that's even a good comeback by Smokes too, right? It's like Kieran finds another goal, by the way. That is his. Actually, Kieran literally has every goal in this game. He has all 6 goals on this team. So
Gar's got it.
Oh man, I love this. I'm all about the competitive trash talk. Obviously, unless it gets too serious, that's when I'm like, all right, relax, boys. But from right now, it just seems like funny trash talk back and forth between the teams. That was a fantastic game 1. Now I wish this was a best of 7 so we could see these two teams back and forth.
Absolutely.
Because also that was a good game. Like, it was a close game too. So it's not like that was just a landslide, which is what I thought originally. It was a very close series, or a very close game between those two. As we look at the replays, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. A lot of goals on both sides, which is nice. It's fun to see, because I wasn't really expecting that off the bat. But Kieran, once again, 6 goals by himself. Really, I wouldn't say by himself. Smokes definitely had some great passes. Obviously, like, that was pretty much a dime from Smokes. But Kieran put a lot of work. Maddie said, Smokes, do something. And if Smokes doesn't have to do anything and that's the scoreline, you're in a bit of a predicament anyways, because it was 6-3 with quote-unquote Kieran and Carey. So imagine if Smokes shows up.
Imagine, yeah, the real troublesome situation for any of the rest of the 34 teams outside of this one here, because
right.
that is when you have a single player, and we've given praise to all of these players that are continuously showing up week in and week out for all these qualifiers. They are
Yeah.
really talented. Kieran being one of the greatest one players that we've seen that can individually carry, as we just saw. Kieran has the ability to do that. And once you get them all on the same page, you know, Kieran and Smokes, as we've seen in the threes, plus Toxic, that trio unstoppable. As we saw, they won every single event. When you get these players working together in tandem, that is a terrifying duo to be able to have to deal with here. And because of the fact that, like you said, Kieran gets everything, if Smokes comes online in this one as well, and it's both of them firing on all cylinders, Lovely Gar has a problem to solve.
They sure do. We'll see if that is going to be a problem for them in this game. See where the scoring starts out originally. Smokes, I think Kieran's just letting Smokes do his thing right now, as Kieran's not really challenging. There he goes, finally. It comes up for the ball and scores immediately on the other team. That's, I mean, Kieran carry. What else can you expect? Now I'm on the Kieran carry train. He decides he wants to play and then goes and scores on the other side of the pitch. I mean, what can you do?
It just lost all momentum there at midfield and nothing happening. And then Smokes just kind of volleyed it up and said, all right, here you go. And away he went.
I see a slight bit of sheesh in chat from Smokes. Just see the half of it bleeding out right there. But Smokes gets it past one, not past the second, as decent defending there comes out from Lovely Gar, as another clear here by Laney, as now Smokes going to be back with the one in possession here. He's going to be back tomato style to try and figure this one out. Ooh. I just realized, on top of that demo, the absolute menace to society that Smokes is he put on the tuxedo and top hat, by the way. Hey, he copied Lanky's style here. Smokes is a menace, dude. And this man could care less about other people's feelings.
And you got to have a person like that. There has to be a personality like that in every competitive scene. I am completely on board with you. I love the trash talk. I love the banter. It develops story. It develops a good actual scene in esports. Like, there has to be a person that does that. And it just makes everything better. It makes you play better. It makes you feel better when they lose. It makes them feel better when they win. And, you know, they get away with the trash talk. Like, it's just such a good thing for the culture to have someone like Smokes, and I can't say nothing but positive things about it. Of course, you know, within limits, right? There's a line you don't want to cross, but this is all in good taste. This is tasteful salt.
Yeah, and Smokes, just the fact that Smokes mirrored the decal is just, I mean, that's unbelievable. A nice slotted shot there coming out from Lanky, though.
Hey, Lanky.
One dapper man to another. Lanky gets that one past him really well. Shot obviously off the right post and into the net. Smokes thought it would go in the right corner, in which he would have had that. I love I banter, and he's not wrong. Smokes is not wrong technically in that situation. The shot was supposed to go top right. It didn't. It went off the post and instead went in. So Smokes was kind of right in the fact that should have been redirected into the top corner and he should have had a save. But, you know, the unpredictability from Lanky was able to score that one initially, and an own goal comes in from the blue side. Oh, things you hate to see in a tied-up game in the second game of the series.
Yeah, and
that's bad.
That's Smokes showing up. Finally gets on the board. 7 goals to the title of top Cougars. 6 of them by Kieran. 1 of them now by Smokes. Technically, even an own goal, but being able to have at least a little bit of something. You know, this is, again, a really great series. I completely agree. I wish this was a best of 7 because of just not only the banter back and forth and the chat. It's endless entertainment. But the fact that these two are relatively pacing with each other pretty well. I mean, this is not a couple of slouches of teams. And, you know, Lovely Gar, as I said, is a team that's been on the fringe. They're a team that's been in the round 3 quarterfinals pretty consistently, almost always, but then they come up against a team that is a team that's eventually going to make like top 4, or if not the grand finals. And it's just a very difficult trajectory that they always have to go through. This time around, they hit that roadblock a little bit earlier, but still, this is a team I think that any given week that they come back for a qualifier, they could be one in the top 8 very easily.
Yeah, and like you said, I'm going to say, there is history between these two teams. So obviously it's good banter, but in the very first qualifier of this month, this team lost to Top Cougars, in which Kieran just keeps racking up some nice shots, and the Kieran Carry, #Kieran Carry continues to spread its wings. But this team faced Top Cougars in the first qualifier, lost to them. The second qualifier, they faced 0x immediately in their first round and lose to them, who ended up being into the championship match, I believe, that second qualifier. And then Top Cougars, once again, their very first matchup in this qualifier, they are just not getting the simple opponents. They've had some rough luck as far as their seeding is gone. Oh, and Matty J is gone.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah, they
no,
are.
you can't back up the trash talk and then leave, boys. You can't do that.
That is not
That's
the move,
embarrassing. That's not good. You hate. Oh man, that's an embarrassing one. You see the LMAOs coming out from smokes. You cannot trash talk and then leave before you can even finish the series. You gotta hold on strong on that one. But man, once again, Top Cougars come out in advancement in a 2-0 series against a very fun game, very fun series that we got to watch there. And an impressive showing once again for Top Cougars. Not too much to really talk about. They're just both insanely good. That's just how they are. Let's go take a look at the series replays powered by Microsoft ATL, of course, on exactly how we saw the rage quit come through from Lovely Gar. Which, there is a point I feel bad for them for having to have 3 of the toughest matchups 3 weeks in a row in their first or second round, but also to trash talk in the series and then rage quit the second game. That's a bold move.
Yeah, and I'm going to take both sides of this coin on this one. I'm going to play both sides so I always win, right?
Yeah.
That's the smart play. So I love the trash talk. I love the toxicity that you're presenting here to the community. Keep doing that. But if you're down 3 goals and a minute 15 to go, you have to stick it out. This is the top gap. This is the top diff, where you're 0-6 and you haven't done anything at all, but you still stay there for the entire duration of the game. There is no world in which you should leave on that. But on the other side, again, Love of Gar's a good team. They're a very solid team, but they just hit this roadblock where it's just a concrete barrier every single week, and they just can't break through to get into like a top 8 position where they're going to qualify for the end of the month grand finals. And it's so hard to see them like headbutting against a concrete wall because it keeps happening. Eventually, the RNG is going to be nice to them, and they're going to get a path to get into a position where they can qualify. But as long as they keep playing Top Cougars, as long as Smokes or Kiernan or some iteration thereof is on the other side of the pitch, it's probably not going to happen for Lovely Gar, which you hate to see it.
Yeah, because I love having that storyline. I think that was fantastic. Like, as an entertainment perspective, that series still has me smiling. Because, even watching the replays and seeing the what a saves and the trash talk between both teams, it was a fun series to watch nonetheless. And like you said, that wouldn't have been fun if it wasn't close. Those 2 games, which until the second game kind of reached out a little bit, were pretty close and were fun to watch. And the skill levels were similar-ish. Top Cougars is just easily one of the best teams in the tournament, so it's hard to match their skill levels, but that was a very fun series, so I do hope that banter and that trash talk does continue in the rest of the tournament. We, of course, are going to try and get to round 3 shortly here, though, after a quick break. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back with some more Rocket League. Welcome back, everyone, to the wonderful ATL Open Series here with Skillshot, powered by CMG, in partnership with Microsoft ATL as well. We are back for qualifier number 3, round number 3, with the best match in the tournament. There's not going to be a better match than this, and I'm going to tell you that now. I'm going to tell you that the grand finals aren't going to live up to this hype. Like, this match right here, which unfortunately is going to be an only best of 3, is Top Cougars versus Night Guard and G's, in which we have the best team in the tournament with probably the second best team in the tournament, especially considering Hamburguesa's second team is out. Yeah, this is by far the best matchup that we're going to see, and it's only in round 3. So unfortunately, one of these teams have to go, but it is going to be a fantastic series.
Yeah, the only other commentary that we can put on another team is going to be on Xerox or Zero X, who is still scrapping down a couple of matches below them. So if Zero does manage to qualify throughout, it would be a semifinals matchup between Zero and the winner of this series. But 100% on board. I think this is going to be one of the best series that we see out of the entire qualifier number 3. And it's unfortunate it's in a round 3 matchup, but it also is kind of an interesting aspect that it is a round 3 matchup, because now you have, outside of these two teams, 12, 14 other teams that are now in a position where they're like, we could be the last team to punch our ticket to the qualifiers for next week, the grand finals next week. And I think that makes it even more interesting storyline.
Yeah, because like we've already talked about, Top Cougars already is qualified for the finals. Night Garden's already qualified for the finals. So is Zero X or Xerox. Yeah. So that's 3 of the potential probably top 8 going into this tournament that is already qualified. So even if both of those 2 or 2 of those 3 teams go in the grand finals, the next 2 teams still qualify. So 3rd and 4th place will still qualify. So it does mean a lot in that case, since Top Cougars and Night Garden G's are knocking one or the other out. That means that's another team that gets to advance themselves into the top 8 and the top 16. So that's really important. I mean, that's in itself an extra chance for one of these teams. So it'll be really nice. It'll be a fresh face, or 2 fresh faces more than likely, in the qualifiers or in the finals next week. But game 1 is starting as we go underway, and I'm not sure if they were ready or not, but nonetheless, countdown started, kickoff went through, and Storms just finds an easy kickoff goal.
Yeah, both went for a fake and just left, and then tried to bump Storms off there on the back line, who thought he was going to go for that corner boost, but recognizing it's a double fake, tries to go up, dodges the bump, gets the shot on, and again, we're playing this little do-si-do here and saying, go ahead, we'll take the skill check and see if you can hit your shots.
Bring out the what-a saves. That's all I want. I want nothing else now. Now that I've experienced it, I'm like an addict. I want more. I want more what-a saves. It fuels my toxicity levels that I need for this tournament. But we see Kieran with a nice double tap. Unfortunately, missing just barely, though, off the corner. Potential passing play here from these 2 players, and a really well-slotted shot. Oh, the third can't connect. The Smokes is wishing to have that one back. That was a really nice play with very little boost and weird positioning that Kieran and Smokes had, as Kieran almost gets that to go off the corner as well. We already talked about how fun this matchup's going to be, and Night Guard and G's puts him up to a solid 2-goal lead, in which they desperately have been looking for, especially to start this series, but just in general, that is a nice thing to have, because we already know Kieran and Smokes can get this one back to level playing field, especially with the hashtag Kieran and carry. Nothing can be stopped on this team, but we see Smokes turned over to the Fennec this game as well. He was rocking the Octane the last few games, and that's something, pro players do. Someone like Garrett G just likes to change his car quite often, Octane to the Fennec, and switching between those 2. It is the same, relatively same car. I mean, it has the same hitbox and everything, but it's just the feel of the car sometimes that makes you play a lot better. And in this case, Smokes is trying it out for the first game of the series.
Yeah, and to not take it lightly about how great this matchup is, right? Storms and Kimmy, this is a 3rd place team at qualifier number 1. But this is a team that would lose to the eventual champions in Hamburguesa, and Kimmy just nice little double tap off the wall and read that one through and through. Good setup for an individual solo play. An attempted disruption there from Kieran to not let that bounce off the backboard happen. But Kimmy and Storms, I mean, such a good duo here. Got so close in that first qualifier, had a hell of a matchup, but just Hamburguesa was just really on one in that opening qualifier for this month's events, and nothing could stop them, as we saw. So being able to see this matchup here that we didn't get to see in qualifier number 1. I mean, this would have been the other grand finals matchup between these two teams. And that's why we call this a grand finals matchup. Smokes has shown up to deliver after their initial exchange with Kieran and Smokes playing it back and forth. Now they finally get one after a nice little 1-2 from midfield.
And we see the development start to come through. I mean, obviously 3-goal lead was really nice, but at any given point, this series can come back easily tied or even be an advantage here for Top Cougars. So that's why Kemi and his teammate need to have constant control of this game, because at no point can you let Kieran and Smokes have anything like that. Like, that's a fantastic challenge from Kemi right there, to be able to understand that Kieran is going to go for that double tap, that you have to read that early and you have to go for that challenge. Not giving them time to make plays is what's really important against Top Cougars, and especially this variant of Top Cougars in Smokes and Kieran, is that they love to make solo plays, and they're both insanely good at it. So if you can challenge them early, if you can stop them from creating, you're going to be in a much better spot overall in the game. And obviously, like you see, like the scoreline shows, they're about to be 4-1 in this game, and they once again are back at the 3-goal lead, in which they're just challenging really well and playing smart. That's all you need to do.
And I think that is the key to victory. I mean, we talk about in a generic sense for most of all these other matchups, right? You control the pacing, control the boost. Basically, it boils down to you pin the other team back and you don't let them participate in the game. It's a no fun zone. And that's how you beat teams. How you beat this team is exactly how we're seeing, because we know Kieran and Smokes both really solid individual players. I mean, just watching that volley from Kieran to try to take that end to end. Incredible individual play that they have. They have such great control and capacity and capability to do whatever they want with the ball. But when you see something like Kemi and Storms continuously getting up, they are breaking down individual players. They are disrupting these individual plays, because we're not seeing an immaculate amount of team play between Smokes and Kieran. There's a little bit here and there, but a lot of it's just a solo aerial dribble. And if you can break down the solo play, there's no team play. That's how you're going to beat this team.
That was an incredible pre-jump coming out from Kemi right there to even read that in the first place. But yeah, it is. This is a lot of Top Cougars struggling, but a really good 50-50 from Kieran right there. Gets that second one back in the net and brings it back within 2 once again. But you see how hard Top Cougars is having to work to get these goals. They are not. Night Garden is not giving them any chances, and this is what we're talking about. When you have to be able to capitalize, you have to be able to score on mistakes, especially in games like this, which is more than likely a grand finals-esque best of 3 here, is that they are going to make very little mistakes, and in which you have to be able to capitalize immediately on those few mistakes. Just like that, Kemi finds a pinch off of an opponent, and that's a good read once again from Kemi, just to realize that Smoke's taking a weird angle. Kemi doesn't really have much else here to do, and the pinch is probably the best thing to go for, and Kieran's not in position to be able to stop that with how fast it went. So 3-goal lead back in favor for Night Garden once again.
And again, that's just a really solid read, and I give all the credit to that. I mean, obviously, someone went to their Scholastic Book Fair this year, because I mean they are just reading everything in front of them, and that a rare mistake that we've seen from them in this game, where both of them get caught out of position. But I mean, they have just done everything right to be able to shut down Top Cougars for the most part, and really just get kind of in the way of everything Top Cougars are setting up. At least, you know, get a deflection on. But something as subtle and as simple as just that little swing it wide that we saw Kemi do, where he read what the defender was going to do, understood there's a pinch coming. That's what you have to do to get this one. But now all of a sudden, after a single small mistake, Kieran and Smokes have kicked this door open, and they're down by a single goal, and they have come screaming back into this game.
And which we were saying is a possibility the entirety of this game. Like, yes, they've been down 4 goals max in this game, or 3 goals. There was never a point where I was like, Smokes and Kieran out of this one, no chance. Like, that's why I kept saying that Kemi and his teammate have to stay consistent, otherwise this will happen. A team like Top Cougars is going to have the offensive creation and consistency in order to constantly be able to create, and that's what they've done so far. Really good challenge right there. Otherwise, that is an easy goal for Kieran. Good fakes by Smokes as well at midfield. Stops this initial chance coming out from the likes of Night Garden. Simple enough save for Kieran as well. gets that one away from net. But with 35 seconds and this being a 1-goal game and a demo potentially, if Kieran had boost, he can actually get the goalie out of the net there, and that's probably a goal for Smokes. But Smokes gets corner boost, has a chance here for a flip reset, doesn't find it. Ball almost goes over Kieran as well. Could have been dangerous. But Smokes needing to hit that one there. Wide open net because of it. Kieran is back in time, thankfully. Rotation's still strong for both teams and shows you why we've been hyping the series up so much. Why this is a grand final series, because these games are going to be close. Oh, what a shot!
What a shot over the top, and they're able to set up the position. We were wondering if it's going to be enough time, but Smokes banking it off the wall. There's no one up to challenge Kieran, and Storm's too little too late on the far post. And we have a tie game with 4 seconds to go. We wondered if Top Cougars were going to be able to find it, or if Night Guard was going to have the defense to stand up. If we're going to get anything in the closing seconds, Kieran with the solo challenge. It's possession. It's in the air. Smokes can't catch in time, so we're going to extra time.
And an incredible extra time and a warranted overtime as well in this game. What we expected in this best of 3. Of course, this is only round 3, so unfortunately one of these teams does have to drop out of this tournament from this game and doesn't get any chances at the finals, but doesn't matter because they're both already guaranteed to the IATL finals next weekend nonetheless. I'm assuming that was the fake there from Temi, or from Kemi, I should say, as it worked out pretty decently and Smokes was just kind of stuck in midair. But a demo goes through, 30 seconds in. No shots have really been put on net just yet. Smokes making his quick rotation for a challenge, and like I've been talking about this entirety of this game so far, is those challenges are so important for both teams. And Storms is going to find that shot into the corner just slightly past Kieran. And I think that's the biggest thing, is how, right? Is how does that simple shot get past him? And I think Smokes is leaving to change his car. I'm assuming that's why he left the match. You're seeing the question marks, but I'm pretty sure he's just going back to the Octane there. So not anything to worry about, just there, as he's already back. So but I mean, incredible game 1. That's only game 1 of what I'm assuming a 3-game series now in the round 3 matchup of 2 grand finalists next week. So no matter what, this is going to be a fantastic matchup. Let's look at the replays of the 11-goal game we just saw out of these 2 fantastic teams.
Yeah, first overtime game. It started out with the banger. I mean, just a fake to the goal, and then almost the same again. But, you know, it started out really strong for the side between Kimmy and Storms. I mean, they were doing everything right. They had a 3-goal lead. They were up 3-0. They were up 4-1. I mean, they were in position where they were in control of this game. But when it comes down to the long-term play, just like you talked about, you cannot count out Kieran. You can't count out Smokes because they have the individual play to be able to claw back into that one, as Kieran able to get the nose on to send us to overtime in this one. But this last goal is the question mark of this series, right? Like the weirdest thing I find about this, because if I had to, I would give a war of attrition game over to Kieran and Smokes. I think that in the long run, they would edge out over any opponent. And when you go to extra time, I thought for sure this is the offensive pressure that we see Kieran and Smokes. They're just going to continuously apply. Eventually, they're going to find a crack. They're going to be able to break down the defense and get the go-ahead goal, win that game in overtime. Instead, it's just a soft little aerial blooper off the wall that Storm sneaks in somehow, and that's what gives them the win. And I agree with you. I think that because of, you know, my assessment that in the long run, Kieran and Smokes take it, but because of what we just saw, this is probably going to be a 3-game series, and it's going to be a goal of separation probably for all 3 of them.
Yeah, we have to remember that that was a 5-1 game, I believe, for Night Guard and G's. Like, they were winning at one point by 4 goals, and they were able to come back and bring in overtime still. So you have to think, if they don't lose, Top Cougars, that is, if they don't leave and they don't bleed that early with that many goals being let in, suddenly that game's a lot different in the comparison of the scoreline. So going into game number 2 here, we'll see if Top Cougars can start off on the rocks here. And I mean, that game was just weird to start, right? It was an immediate goal or kickoff goal coming out. It just looks like Kieran and Smokes weren't ready for that one. Smokes went right past the ball to start. So this is a much different turnaround, and you got to make every chance count. And that is a mistake from Night Guard, and a kickoff goal for Top Cougars here.
See, I was going to say that this game now, I believe, is going to go one of 2 ways, where just like we saw in the last series with Smokes and Kieran, what a save. You lean forward in the chair, you take it a little more seriously. And Top Cougars could come out swinging like we've seen in the first 12 seconds where they get that goal scored. Or we're going to see the momentum shift to the Night Guard and G's, where they've taken the game. Now they are in Cloud 9. They're feeling everything right, and they take this game by storm. Instead, 20 seconds in, we're going to go with the Top Cougars route of this narrative, and Kiernan and Smokes. Now, 2 goals up, 20 seconds is a really good start for game number 2.
It is, yeah, and it's kind of not what I was expecting, but I was expecting Top Cougars to be a little bit more on track, especially in the early game of the first game. So to see them go down early, it was just a very weird start to that game in general. I think that game might have been our outlier game in total, as that's an amazing save from Kenny. Almost a fantastically placed shot from Smokes here. If he finds a redirect, it actually just gets called off by Kiernan. Really good communication. You can tell just from Kiernan and Smokes right there for Smokes to leave that, because he could have redirected that towards midfield, but Kiernan knew he had a good shot and almost slots that one to the back corner. But nonetheless, Smokes and Kiernan looking really strong in game number 2. As I say that, Kiernan does miss a little bit, but still a chance here for Top Cougars as no one's back in the net, and Smokes just carries that one in. And now Night Guard are bleeding a little bit here. 3 goals in a minute.
Yeah, this is just a really interesting kind of way that it's playing out here between these two. I mean, Smokes just, with the little flip, makes the defender completely miss and gets rocketed to the corner, completely eliminating them from the play. So Kiernan and Smokes here are doing very well in tandem, and this is what I talk about. When you get these two players firing on all cylinders and playing together, this is a very tough team to beat, and that's why a minute in, they've got 3 goals to their name, and Night Guard and G's don't really have much to offer the other way. Like, they haven't even had much of a chance to try to put many shots on, to try to do anything. Their defense is still contesting decently well, but the fact that they've bled out for 3 goals now, an uphill battle against Top Cougars is never a position you want to be in.
Yeah, it's we talked about how Night Guard had a 4-goal lead and they still choked it, in a sense, where Top Cougars can score an insane amount of goals in a given game that they can find themselves in. And so when you're on the flip reverse of that, where Night Guard has to try and go and mount a comeback against Top Cougars, it's even more difficult because of how much Top Cougars scores. Like, sure, I could see Night Guard scoring 3 goals this game, but at that point, I feel like Top Guard already scored 4 more. So it's like, at that point, we see another one being slotted top left from Kiernan right there as he gets that one just past the defender. A little bit of bumping back and forth between the two, but yeah, just gets the speed right past Storms. Really well challenged there from Kiernan and gets him up 4-0 with only 2 minutes have passed. Very strong showing from Top Cougars in game number 2 here so far.
Yeah, and being able to kind of accent this, you know, the way that they're playing here in game number 2. I mean, we always talk about building momentum early and creating some level of confidence going into your future matchups, because this competition is going to get more and more challenging. I think for the Top Cougars perspective, unless Xerox comes into play here, this is the most difficult matchup you're going to have for the remainder of the day. So if you're in a position today where you can take this matchup here and decisively win game number 2, Storms is able to get one back. I mean, there's so much time left, right? There's still 2.5 minutes. That's more than enough time for Top Cougars to blow this lead and Night Guard to come back, or they could just double up and, you know, put it 8-2. It could go either way, but this is, I think, really reassuring for Top Cougars in their position right now.
Yeah, it is. I mean, as almost a 5th one flies in, even that one going back for Night Gardens, they're still feeling pretty good about how this game goes overall. Kemi with a nice fake there, almost gets a flick top net. Great challenge from Kieran, stops that second shot from going in from Storms, and Kemi should have enough time here. He waits way too long, though, and just lets that one go past him. I think he was assuming that this wasn't going to have a chance to go in the back of that, because he had full boost here. He could have gotten this right there, and then realized way too late that it's going in. That is just a bad mistake from Kemi to let that one go in, especially in such a crucial game like this, in which you maybe could have mounted a comeback of 3 goals, but it starts just to highly shrink away when you get to that 4-goal mark, especially. Great move from Kemi, though.
Okay, Kemi. Yeah, making it look that much more challenging as they're looking uphill, but Kemi taking this one out of the air, gets the reset, gets a little extra boost, and almost the musty in, but that's just such a great play from Kemi to be able to put that one in. 3 goals down now. Again, 2 minutes is tons of time in Rocket League, but just the way that Top Cougars is playing, you have to be at your ceiling in order to contest this, and we know that they can hang with them. They can go blow for blow. Kemi with another attempt. I mean, Kemi right now is trying so hard to get these goals back.
He is, and it's still doable. I mean, there's plenty of time in this game for both teams realistically to keep on scoring. So that's kind of the scary thing, is that Top Cougars is not going to stop. That hits off the top right just barely as Kieran almost gets that one to go through. Gets past one, but great bump from Kieran means Storms can't continue with that one. So nicely done there, but it is still a very sketchy situation here for Night Guard and G's. Now that the clock's slowly ticking down a little bit, 3 goals is a lot, but you know, we've seen it from both teams. They can score a lot in a little amount of time. So that's what we're realistically looking at right now from either side, is to see where that next goal kind of develops. Nice shot here. Smoke's going to find that redirect. And I was going to say double commit there probably leads to a goal, but a really smart challenge from, I believe, Storms was able to stop that. Or actually it was Kemi was able to stop that from being a direct counterattack. So good challenges from both teams means a lot in this scenario, as they're both trying to go back and forth with each other. And I mean, with a straight minute of nothing happening, obviously Top Cougars highly in favor here.
Yeah, and just the way that this played out for the last 60 seconds is that the stalemate of back and forth possession is unfortunately the wound that won't heal for Night Guard, because the fact they simply cannot get back in this game because they can't find any goals. Kimmy gets another one, but 2 goals, 21 seconds. It is possible, but it is a long shot, just in the sense that you wasted, quote unquote, wasted a minute and a half, disappeared off the clock and nothing happened. And that's the worst case scenario for Night Garden, because they had to be able to get something back a little bit earlier, 20 seconds ago, to be a little more comfortable to go into the closing seconds of this one. But, you know, being down as much as they were and coming back to a 2-goal deficit, but now almost a 1. Wow. Kieran, crucial save right there, because if that ball goes in, 12 seconds on the clock and a goal down, I mean, Top Cougars did just that. 12 seconds and a goal scored. But instead, keep it at 2, 0s on the board, and we're going to be tied up at a game apiece.
Yeah, and no surprise there. We already expected this to go all 3 games, especially after the first game went in favor of Night Gardens. I was like, yeah, there's no chance that Top Cougars loses a second game because of that comeback, and they just looked like they were edging out to win that one in overtime, obviously through the later development of that game. Let's go and take a look at the replays of game number 2, in which Top Cougars found their first win of this best of 3. Early goal, it seems to be whoever gets that early goal gains a lot of momentum in both games, because that did happen in the first game as well, to lead to a bit of scoring early on for Night Garden. So you got to keep safety on your kickoffs, it seems, as that is a grueling start to the series, or start to the games for both teams. Of course, these are powered by Microsoft ATL, and I mean, looking at how Night Guard and G's has to take game 3, I realistically, it's so hard to limit either one of these teams to stop scoring. So how do you do that going into game 3 in either team, really? How do you stop the other team from scoring? And a lot of that comes down to just the physicality, constantly boost starving, like you said, I think is going to be something important that we see later in the series, especially considering how much the ball is in the air and you're going to have to challenge fast and you're going to have to challenge early. You're going to have boosts a lot of the time. And so when you're starting to boost starve the other team, they're not able to make those challenges in the midair that Kieran's like trying to get off the backboard. They're not going to be able to get that. So taking those boosts, trying to get them off of low boosts and keeping those challenges coming is going to be important in this game 3.
Yeah, being able to utilize that resource of the boost is going to be a huge factor in this one. And I think in the first 60 seconds is going to be the difference maker. We saw game 1, game 2, the same, but just a different team. The team that gets those early goals, sets up the momentum to take that lead early, is the one that eventually goes on. So opening up here, the first 60 to 80 seconds, very interested to see which of these two teams is going to go ahead and grab the bull by the horns and take control of this series now. Effectively a best of 1 between 2 grand final caliber teams, and Kieran is going to get the first one up to the upper left corner. 9 seconds in, and they're already picking up on their offensive pressure.
Yeah, and it's no shock, obviously, so far from what we've seen. I mean, with Top Cougars, with how this series have ran so far, team with the first goal has won the game. So as of right now, Top Cougars looking strong to continue with that one once again. But we'll see if they can maintain that going into the rest of this game, as even a 3-goal lead, no matter what team, is not safe. So you have to constantly make sure you're playing consistent and playing this game entirely out with how much these teams can score. As you see, Smokes comes up for the ball. Has a great chance here. Flip reset potential. Just tries to go for the low fake onto Kemi. Kieran gets way too high on that ball, but a good challenge from Storms is able to stop that from going in. No boost in net. This is what I'm talking about. You boost starve them. You keep the chances coming. You keep them stuck in net. There's no chance for Kemi to come get this one because you can already tell he's out of boost. He just has to use the 12 boost he has to try and get to that one, and there's no chance.
Yeah, just driving in circles, quite literally and figuratively, where it's like, what do you do? Where do you go? You can't leave because you leave an open net. You can't leave because you don't have any boost. Like, you can't save it because you don't have boost. Like, it's just this catch-22 where, unfortunately, you are just quite literally stuck. And Storms almost gets one to sneak inside that upright, but now goes the other way very quickly. It will save, but it just really is the showcase that the teams that can dictate the boost control of a game get just this inherent advantage. And now Kieran going to take this one with all the boost. This little extra pop shove it into the back of the net. 3-0 lead here for Top Cougars. And they figured it out after game one. They didn't give up any early leads again. Now here we are. I said 60 to 80 second threshold was where we're going to find out. They've got 3 goals in the first 68 seconds. Top Cougars in form.
Yeah, and it's leading that similar pattern of first goal, first win for both teams as we see Top Cougars once again at 3-0 lead. Great challenge from Smokes to even find that 50-50. Kieran should be able to get this back towards net, not on net, as that's a mistake. Now that is an overcommit and a double commit as Kemi just bumps his teammate out of the way and says, this is mine, Storms. But that's what they're looking for, is an overcommit on offense. Because of how strong Smokes and Kieran are on offense, they are going to commit often because they want the challenges. Yes. They know that they can make those challenges, make the shots, so they're going to be aggressive. But that is, of course, going to turn into counterattack potential, just like we saw there.
Yeah, and that is one of the few weaknesses of a team. I mean, there are some cracks in the armor. Like, this team is not perfect by any means, but they are a really good team, and there's just unfortunate that's the second time we've seen Kemi chasing a ball into the back of the net as it goes the other way. Kieran with a great challenge, and I think that probably actually is a highlight of this series. I think both of these teams have done exceptionally well on challenging in the air and trying to disrupt the other team's game plan, but obviously he's working out for one team a lot better than the other, and I think that's because outright I still give edge of a war of attrition to Top Cougars because in the long run, they just have it. It doesn't matter how far down they are. It doesn't matter what the situation is in. Those two players, regardless of who's on the Top Cougars roster any given duo week, are just so good.
Yeah, they are. They're just... It's so difficult when you're at this standpoint. Once again, Kieran and Smokes just keep putting shots on net. A fantastic save from Kemi is able to at least stop this from being a 4-goal differential. But Kemi and Storms have to start creating. That is almost a fantastic play. But even then, if that goes top corner, Smokes was there as well. So Smokes and Kieran clearly reading. Nice bump off the corner there and an even better challenge. But Smokes somehow makes a recovery after the initial bump. And that is incredible recovery from Smokes, like I said, to be able to get back in that standpoint there. Mid boost taken from Smokes as well. So the boost starve continues to go through as Storms and Kemi try to challenge with little to no boost. 25 boost, that is all that Storms is working with. Good challenge there if he has his teammate, and he does. So that's another open net as they find Top Cougars over-aggressive on offense once again.
And this is, I think, how Night Garden just gets back into this. You just simply chip away at the lead as much as you can. Granted, you don't want to give up anything on the other side. You have to keep disrupting the individual plays Kieran and Smokes are trying to put together and trying to not let them get anything on the other side. But all of a sudden now, a 2 and a 3rd, we have effectively chipped away at this lead, and now it's a single goal, 2 minutes to play. And 20 seconds ago, I was going to say there's a lot of time left here for Night Garden to do something, but just the way that they're playing, it didn't look like they were going to find the opportunities. Well, for a quick goal and a quick kickoff, we're right back in it.
And also, the winner of this game goes on to face the Grand Plats, who knocked out one of the best teams in the tournament, Tekaz, as Smokes finds a comfort goal once again for this team, getting back to 2 goals within. But the Grand Plats is kind of the underdog team from what I've seen so far. They beat Midnight Club in round 3. And obviously, like we've said, Jalding and Tekaz there in round 2, part of the really solid 3-stack they had going into last month. And obviously, Ambergesa, one of the best teams that we saw in the earlier qualifiers this month. But So I mean, that alone is another really solid underdog team, the Grand Plats, that I'm looking forward to see if they can handle the winner of this game, because either one of these teams look like they're at the top of their game today. Like they both look. This has been an amazing series, and just kind of shows you the pace of play you need to have if you're going to try and beat these teams.
Yeah, and such a great matchup between two great teams. I don't want to look too far down the road just yet with the 90 seconds to play in a great series here, but I don't want them to get caught snoozing either because of what we've seen from the Grand Plats. But first, you got to get through these last 80 seconds regardless and not give anything up. Kieran is going to give them a third goal lead now. Minute 18 left, and up 6-3, I think, is in a position where Top Cougars, they can't be comfortable, but they can feel a little more assured that this is in a position that they want to be in, because now all they got to do is just burn the clock for the next 60 seconds or so and just completely put this one out of reach here. If not, tack on a few more. Why not? Good fake here by Smokes, and just going to take that one slow and steady in. And that, I think, is going to be the one that actually is the decisive goal here for this game.
Yeah, and you see Smokes bringing up the trash talk a little bit, bringing out the whoops and the whatever it needs to be. I mean, you got to get in their head, right? It's all at the mental game. And as you see, Kemi's starting to fire off a little bit. Smokes has started it once again. Last time it wasn't Smokes that started, but the demo comes through on Kemi, gets him caught lacking, and puts an 8th goal into the net. And yeah, I mean, at this point, Night Garden is out. Like their mental's boomed. You can already tell that they are no longer able to come back in this game. After that first game went through, I realistically thought this should have been a 2-0 for Top Cougars, but this kind of mental from Kemi also kind of shows that they kind of never expected to win this series, realistically, is kind of what I'm thinking. Because I feel like they were happy they won that first game, but with the way they're kind of reacting now is like, they're like, oh yeah, you guys played too much anyways. You guys are way too good, which is like, I mean, for how good they are, I can't blame them for playing a lot and trying to be better. And obviously, with their record in tournaments so far, it's paying out for them. Like, it's not like they're going to nowhere. It's not going to a waste. They won the entirety of last month and are going to try and continue that trend this month. So, I don't know. They're just a strong team.
Yeah, and their wins extended beyond just a month. I mean, they won everything in the 3v3, but they also won previously in the 2v2. So they went like a 5 or 6 week streak of winning every event in the Skill Shot Open, and being able to have that kind of dominance over a community. You know, you create a reputation where all of a sudden everyone is looking up at you. And in this perspective, Night Garden, a relative newcomer, if you will, into this community where they're like right there on the edge as a top 5, top 10 team, but like they just can't quite handle, the pressure of this one. But now here we are with 12 seconds to go, three goals down. I mean, like, this is just the garbage time goals that they're just giving up. Like, it is what it is.
Neither team is playing. Like, at this point, they're just going. But I mean, and it's weird typing at that. Like, it's a fantastic best of 3. You have to give Kieran and Smokes their props. But like, if you're going into the finals like this, and you're going to probably face Top Cougars, if you're going to try and advance yourself in the finals, they're going to beat you again because they know how to get in your head, and like they're clearly just the better team. I don't know what else to say. You have to give Smokes and Kieran their props, and like I feel like it's kind of embarrassing a little bit on Storms and Kemi's side to like not just be like, you guys, it was an amazing series. It was the best of 3 that went all 3 games. It was very close. And just to like kind of just let that all slip away is very weird to me. That's the difference in banter that I see. That is like, oh, this is not just funny anymore. They're just mad now. Like that, they just went to a level to where they're just like, they started trash talking you. You guys play too much. Like, that's just a weird insult in general, because if you want to get good at a game, you have to put practice in. But we'll look at the series replays to see how Top Cougars ended up taking this into 3 games. Obviously, a whole lot of scoring from both teams. That's the most we could know from this one, is that did every game, I think, have over 10 goals? I think it was just around that mark, in which both teams might average 4 or 5 goals a game. So, I mean, that's an impressive stat line in a best of 3, especially.
Yeah, the exception big game 2, I think, was a 5-3 scoreline, but it's 8 goals still, like that, and then you get 14 out of game 3 just because of what the last 30 seconds is in Typing Simulator 2021. But a really good showing here between both of these teams, and for what it's worth, game one was a great matchup between two really solid teams where it's a clean slate going in. But I think I agree in the sentiment that, you look at it and just the reaction of it is that it seems like Night Garden already was counting themselves as the underdogs when they certainly had every fighting chance to be able to win this series, but in the first 60 to 70 seconds of game two and game three, they gave up 3 goals to Kiernan and Smokes. And that's just something that you can't handle. You can't have against a championship caliber team. You have to be able to lock down that defense a little bit more to disrupt. But for the rest of the game, they do a pretty good job at disrupting and getting up there and challenging. And Smokes and Kiernan do a pretty good job at boost starvation and creating their own opportunities. But it's just such a good back and forth between these. And I completely agree. I think this, as we talk about the last series to this one, there is a friendly level of toxicity where you get that banter, the what a saves, and just the immediate, the D-pads. But it's not something where you go into this one where you're just typing and you're just angry and you're just upset and you're salty. And it's like the mental complete boom. You're on full tilt. At that point, you just take a hard reset and, just call it a day.
Yeah, and going into the finals, I mean, we talked about Kemi and Storms. Their 47-2 record going into this in total in Rocket League is insanely impressive. But if that's going to be how you react in a loss, it's going to be a rough going, because obviously you're a great team. But if that's your reaction to losing, and especially you could tell after game 2 that it was just a different team in comparison to the first game that we saw in the challenges and everything. So yeah, mental game is extremely important. We don't talk about it enough, but you have to keep that mental, especially against a really good team like that, because Smokes and Kieran will get in your head without saying anything. They will just score on you constantly, and they'll just play extremely well together, and they'll send you like one okay, and you're like, I hate this team all of a sudden. And that's all they need to do. They're not worried about how they play in this game, because obviously that should have just been a fun best of 3. Nonetheless, both of these teams are qualified for the finals anyways. Like it doesn't need to be that much pressure on that matchup, but I don't know, just a little too serious from Night Garden on that end, and it leads to them getting knocked out in round 3.
Yeah, the asterisk to this now is because of the now toll that game takes, not only on Night Guard, but also Top Cougars, like where that could have spun them up, could have riled them up. On the other side, you have the Grand Plats that have, beaten a couple of decent teams already. So as I briefly alluded to, you don't want to look too far down the road, but this is a team that could potentially play spoiler here for Top Cougars. And if you come off of that series in a mental tilt state at all, then that might kind of be a detriment to your next one. But that is a different matchup here in our quarterfinals, because the one that we're going into is going to be into a position between Xerox to see them try to come back in this one, because this is another interesting team that we're keeping an eye on as this tournament has progressed. And now watching and being able to spectate them, the winner of this game will go on to face the winner of the Top Cougars and Grand Plats matchup. So very interesting matchup here.
It is, yeah, and like we've talked about, Grand Plats is kind of the underdog that's going into this one, into which they did already beat a very strong team in the Ambergesa 2 team, I guess, the not fully developed Ambergesa team, but still, I think that was their 3-stack in last month's tournament, was Jalding, Tech Oz, and I'm forgetting their third, Luis, I think, in that team. So it was a very good 3-stack, and then he just played with Luis last week and now switched it back up to a Tech Oz this weekend. Didn't work out, so but that being said, it didn't work out against this Grand Plats team, who now faces their toughest matchup yet, in which if they are the underdog in this tournament, this is where they're going to show it. This is where they have to show it realistically, of course, in the top 8 right now. If they get themselves to the semifinals, they're almost guaranteed a qualification spot, because the rest of these teams that we've seen before or haven't seen before are not going to be as tough as this game. That is just by far, without a doubt, they're not going to be as tough as this game. So if they can get past Top Cougars here, they have a good chance to qualify for the finals next week.
Yeah, and look forward to see those teams that do move forward. Of course, the rest of the bracket that has gone forward, besides the matchup we're getting ready to see here between Xerox and Os Pillows, we have Team Copyright 9 facing off against Vo, LGBT, and Close Genesis. Vo and LGBT, both the first 2 teams to make it into quarterfinals, and they were there before the last best of 3 even started between Top Cougars and Night Garden. So they've been here for a while, waiting their opponents and waiting for that to play out. And I'm sure those matches in progress at some point. But between this top half of the bracket now is where a lot of I think attention will be drawn, which I think also gives a good opportunity for the bottom half of the bracket to try to sneak in there, as you said, with semifinals being a potential qualifying position for next week. But first and foremost, we got to get through this other matchup on the top half of the bracket. Xerox, a grand finals team from last week, trying to come back in this one. They've already qualified, so at this point, it is all bragging rights that they're playing for here.
Yeah, as far as original seeding would go, 3 of the top teams in this tournament are all in this top half of the bracket, going into the semifinals potentially. So once again, it's another extremely difficult top half of the bracket, and we have to see if, I mean, even if Xerox wins this game, they go against the winner of Top Cougars and Grand Plats. Like, they don't have an easy semifinals matchup either. So it is a rough matchup once they get there, but they just have to get there, try and get themselves that guarantee to potentially go into the grand finals here. But of course, like we already said, Xerox is already guaranteed the grand finals. That's something you cannot be doing,
Okay.
especially in the quarterfinals. You're just having 2 people sit in net and just wait, because you'll get scored on every time.
Absolutely. And we've seen Mizuki and Elite Ghost do phenomenal things between them. And that's the reason that they made it to the grand finals. And that's why they were so good to get to that position and put up a pretty good fight there in that last qualifier last week. But now try to find their way back here in this one. I mean, this is a team that you can completely expect to find opportunities, to create opportunities. A simple little bump in front of the goal is enough to let that slow bounce roll in and give Elite Ghost credit for the goal. A 2-0 lead now. And Xerox, I think, is just in a position where this is a team that, you know, they have earned their way into this quarterfinal position, but Ospelos here on the other side might have had a little bit of an easier track and now find themselves against a difficult opponent.
Yeah, that's exactly my thinking here. Looking at their matchup history, it's 2 teams I have never seen before. So, yeah, they could have had a much easier... I mean, the bottom half of the bracket was simpler in terms of that. Well, I guess they're in the top half, but the bottom half, the top half of the bracket, I guess. So they avoided out a lot of the essentially insanely good teams and probably faced a couple of easier teams to get here. But this is a quarterfinals matchup, and Xerox is just kind of making them look silly here. I mean, there's not really... Like, respectively, this is a 2-0 series. We go next. Like, I don't think there's much to be said about how this is going to go because of just... You can just see the difference in pace of play in the 2 teams. That's kind of the way I always look at Rocket League is how fast is this team playing? You know, how much are they trying to do crazy things, trying to do aerials, trying to do team plays in correlation to the other team. And right now, 0x doesn't even have to do any of that. And that's a shot you cannot be missing in general. When you have the chance, you have to be able to create. It's what we were talking about earlier. Any chance like that comes off a mistake or an overcommit, you have to be able to put on target. And so that is not the guarantee here, but Ospiel is going to at least find a goal to come back. Still need 2 more, though.
Yeah, being able to find one, I mean, it's a decent read to come off and be able to get up in the air early to punch that one in over the top of the defender. So a 3-1, I think for the first 90 seconds or so, you get a feel for it. You know, as an opponent that you haven't played against, maybe you're not really sure what to expect in this position. But, you know, we've seen opportunities from Ospiel where they just don't really capitalize fully on what they should. And as you said, like, open opportunities like we saw Andre take, you know, that's a shot that you have to hit. You have to land that one and make sure that that goes in. But, I mean, this is just slow dribblers in front of the net. The Xerox also should be putting a little more velocity behind, add a little momentum to it so that they can get these goals to score. Instead, Andre going to take this one end-to-end and try to win the 1v1, but can't do so. And that's the problem right now we see from this team is that, you know, they're in positions where they can put points on the board, but they're just not executing.
Yeah, that's the simple point. I mean, it doesn't get much easier to explain than that. They're just not executing. Their rotations are not, like, that's just a dribble in from Mizuki. That can't happen. Like, just very simple things that Aspilos has to be able to try and clean up going into the second game, because this is that offsetting game for 0x once again, or Xerox, that they're going to go to the semifinals. They're going to go against Top Cougars or Grand Plats, and they have to reset their palette because this is a much simpler game than what you're going to have going later into the tournament. And that being said, I'm not obviously discrediting Ospilo's, you know, journey to get to the quarterfinals, but they are just not, in simple terms, they're just not as good as some of the teams in this top 8. And that's just as simple as that. Like, they are not to the level of Top Cougars, 0x, the returning champion teams that we've seen before. Like, they just can't compete to that level. And, you know, I'm not discrediting them at all, but this is just not their matchup. This is a very difficult match to get in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, and sometimes we see teams like that where it's like just an unfortunate, like where you have a team that theoretically could advance a decent distance into the bracket, but they get first rounded by an eventual champion of the bracket. But they still have these fighting chances where there are mistakes being made by the 0x side. They are leaving openings here for Aspil to be able to get points on, to score back. Andre had a couple of good opportunities with an open net, with shots to take, but it's just a little sloppy gameplay, I think, from both sides at this point. And it might be just the slowing of the game that's throwing 0x off, and they're not able to play the way that they really want to because they just aren't in a comfortable position, but they're still able to do enough to hold on to the lead that they've built. The matter of the fact is, can they do it for another 90 seconds, or are they going to find breakdowns on the other side? Instead, Lico's going to get that rebound and send it across the line, put them up 5-2.
Yeah, and that should be the finishing goal here. We'll see if that is going to be the case or not, of course, but 5-2 is the scoreline. 3-goal lead is very difficult to come back unless you are top Cougars, is what we've seen in the last games. But as of right now, 0x are looking strong to continue into their Game 2 momentum. And looking at how the brackets developed, Team Copyright Name is the only team that has advanced to the semifinals already. So that is a guarantee going forward into the semifinals. They're in a top 4 spot in which if 0x and Top Cougars both get to the semifinals, the other 2 teams are guaranteed to get advanced to the finals. So that's fantastic news. If you're Copyright Name right now, you're hoping for a Xerox and Top Cougars win, because in that case, you are automatically guaranteed grand finals. So that is a nice point to be at when you're only in the semis.
And that's why we talked about and very briefly brought up before this series had started, there is a phenomenal opportunity here for the bottom half of this bracket, these bottom 4 teams, that was including Vo before they ultimately lost their 2 Copyright Name, for them to advance into the semifinals to qualify for next week because of the way the top half has shaken out. But at the same time, may I be so bold as to proclaim, E3 has told us the team that beats Vo in the quarterfinals will go on to win the entire qualifier. So as history shows, things are looking good for Team Copyright Name right now.
Yeah, they sure are. And obviously there's some hype in chat for them as well, for Simplex Copyright Name, who's on the team, not just only the team Copyright Name. It is Copyright Name's team. On top of that, we've stopped talking about the game. Obviously, clearly, you know why. It's 8-2, and there's no hope for Ospilos here. Let me just describe it. There's no hope. It's 8-2. They're being outpaced, outscored. It's not looking too hot for this game. Maybe they fix it in game 2, but as far as the series goes for quarterfinals, it's looking pretty stonked for 0x here to just continue their scoring momentum. And we'll see. So the winner of this game, of course, goes to the top half of the semifinals, in which they await Top Cougars and Grand Plats. Team Copyright Name is currently waiting on Closed Genesis and LGBT, in which 2 teams we have not seen at all today, actually at all in Skillshot in the CMG tournament so far. So those are 2 unknown teams going into the semifinals that we don't realistically know how good they are. And, same can be said for Copyright Name. They don't know how good they are. We don't know how good Team Copyright Name is. So there's a lot of unknowns going into the semifinals still. Yeah. But, still touching back to that base point, which is the most important, is that 0x is going to win this game, like almost without a doubt. Or, well, yeah, okay, obviously this game, yeah. Well, win this series, well, almost without a doubt, in which that is 1 grand final spot next week, guaranteed. Because 0x is going to win this game, or win this series. So that is already means that 3rd place team, no matter what, is going to get qualified for next week. We'll take a look at the replays of that game, just a score fiesta, of course, for 0x, our previous champions, but it's a nice feeling because I was so interested to see the Top Cougars and Grand Plats game, so I want to see how that goes, because Grand Plats really could be that underdog team. I mean, beating Geraldine's team, of course, that's an insanely good team to beat in the first place. So I wanted to see how they'd fare up against Top Cougars, or if just Top Cougars would kind of breeze it right by them. But if Top Cougars do manage to lose that, then it actually is a battle for the grand finals to see who qualifies into the next week. So that'll be something important to keep track of. And of course, those replays brought to you by Microsoft ATL. But we're going to game 2 of this series as 0x tries to close it out against Ospilos here and advance themselves to the semifinals. Of course, they are still playing for something this week. The grand finals is next week with that $500 prize pool. But this week, $125 for first, $50 for second. And in 2v2s, it's pretty easy to split up. So it's nice for both teams to be able to take that away. And we'll see what 2 teams that is going to be. After this quarterfinals goes through, we'll start to get kind of an idea of what that seems to be. Because obviously, I mean, that top half semifinal is going to be a rough one, no matter who the two teams are, 0x and whoever else. But the bottom half is where that kind of unknown kind of lurks, and kind of exciting to see two unknown teams kind of being brought up in, especially in the semifinals, which means, it's not just luck, not just easy matchups that brought you this far. Maybe to the quarterfinals, like Ospielos has gotten decent luck, in 2 rounds. It's not that unheard of to get 2 easy matchups in 2 rounds, but to go from the quarterfinals now to the semifinals, top 4 is a whole different level. So that's where we get to see the exciting games happen.
Yeah, and to watch, the bottom half of the bracket and how it's going to shake out. You talk about a lot of these teams that we haven't seen, and we don't really know how good they are. Part of that is the sense that we can look at teams that we have seen before, and that gives us a little bit of a scale to understand and gauge the talent level of these teams that are in competition, right? So seeing that we've seen Vo play a few times and we've seen them lose, we know about at least how good Team Copyright Name is. At least there's a minimum threshold that they can now meet. And on the other side, with watching Grand Plats, how they fare against top Cougars, we're going to get a good idea as to how they will fare and the minimum threshold that they can meet. But on the other side, to give credit to LGBT, a team that's advanced almost as the first team every single round to go to the next one, have just advanced now to the semifinals as well. So that semifinals matchup is locked in. Now we're just waiting on the top half between these two. And again, with 0x, theoretically, more than likely, locked to go to the semis with the way that they were commanding in game number 1, waiting for them to kick online here in game number 2 as a minute and some change has passed. The other big question mark is, where is that bottom threshold for Grand Plats? Is it enough to beat top Cougars? Because that will make a significant impact on our semifinals matchups and who qualifies for next week.
And I know we always talk about it, but like top Cougars just look so good. Like Smokes and Kieran and as a duo respectively are just insane players. So to see how they play in that one, just overall, they just look so strong. So going into the semifinals or quarterfinals even, which I thought was a grand final matchup, so I have my brains all over the place. But looking at them just going into the quarterfinals, it is a tough matchup already for Grand Plats, because maybe you caught, Team Tech guys early first round of the tournament. They weren't, prepared, didn't play enough Rocket League today, whatever the case might be. There's always some outliers, but facing a top Cougars that is at the top of their game going into the quarterfinals, like probably one of their hardest matchups so far in that last matchup, to go from that to their next game, like they're already going to be mentally prepared as well. So it's a tough matchup for whoever has to face them from the winner of this game. Of course, it's more than likely Xerox there waiting right now after the first game win and currently holding the lead here in game number 2. And with 3 minutes left on the clock, not a whole lot. Yeah, right. That's also true. It's not much of a lead. One simple goal, one counterattack goes in. One challenge, like something there, means that Ospila is back in the mix. But as of right now, Xerox just kind of playing with their food.
Yeah, seemingly is the case, but also a little bit, I wouldn't say worrying, but like just hoping that they're not taking too much pressure off the gas here in a figurative sense, because of, the matchup that you're about to go into. This is where the talent boils down, and potentially going to be a very, very difficult game, as this is, again, the top half of the bracket, just the absolute death run in this qualifier as well, comparatively speaking, from the teams that we've seen prior to. But, those teams on the bottom, it could also be a pleasant surprise where they are just as good, if not better, than what we see in the top half. We're just talking from teams we've already seen and experiences that we have, but I don't want it to be a worry where Xerox really kind of coast through this game too, and they take a dub, a goal up, a 2-0 maybe, and then have to face off against a team like Top Cougars potentially, where, again, as a point brought up earlier in the series, you have a quote-unquote not challenging matchup to then go in against the best team in the bracket, and the way you play in this one carries over to the next one, you're doomed from the start.
Yeah, you are, and you can't. It's really difficult to not let that happen. But yeah, you have to be able to keep that in control. That is almost a huge mistake from 0x right there. There's just a lot going on and nothing at the same time. Like, weirdly enough, like that should have been a goal for Ospilos. Nobody was in net for Xerox, but nobody was in a position to score that on Ospilos' team either. So, like you said, taking that pressure off the gas could mean drastic things, especially going into the semifinals for Xerox here, because we've already talked about how that switch in matchups is and the differential in there
it is.
pace and all. But that second goal goes in. That's just a rather easy goal as well. It's not anything they work too crazy for. That's just a simple tap in from Mizuki, just going off the corner. No one on the backboard to save that one for Ospilos. As it looks like we did get our second semifinalist matchup done. So LGBT advances against Close Genesis out of the quarterfinals. And that will be your next semifinal matchup. So we have the winner of this game, which Zero X is looking likely, versus Top Cougars and Grand Plat's winner. And then we have Team Copyright Name and LGPD just waiting on the semis. That, like we've already talked about, that matchup should be really fun to watch because both teams have not been shown on stream yet. We don't really know how their pace of play, how everything works yet. That was a pretty decent passing play being lined up there from Ospilos, though. Unfortunately, went down to nothing as Mizuki was just sitting there in net waiting for that shot. But that should mean it all is over here for Ospilos, unfortunately. Couldn't find their ticket to the grand finals, couldn't find their ticket to the qualifiers finals next week. Of course, on Thursday, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, same as this week. You'll see us the next week for the top 8 matchup. That is going to be fantastic to watch. I mean, we already saw Top Cougars and Night Garden earlier on today. Imagine 7 more of those best of 3s next week or best of 5s next week. Like it's fantastic. We're going to take a look at the series replays, though, as Zero X does comfortably win against Ospilos here to advance themselves to the semifinals.
Yeah, and perhaps a little too comfortable, right? Like the point I brought up, they really just coasted through game number 2. And I think that's okay because you still get the dub, but also mildly concerning depending on who your next opponent's going to be because of just how slow you played. Like now you're going to go into the next one where you're going to have to ramp it up 0 to 100 real fast to be able to match what your opponents are going to do. So hopefully that's not a little bit of complacency kicking in that will carry to their next best of 3. But yeah, for this series, outscoring their opponent with 10-1, 10-2, something like that over the 2 games is something that they can at least dwell on in the sense of it's reassuring that they still walked away with the victory because game 1, such a dominant victory with 8-1, 8-2 final scoreline. And then in this one, as I said, just coasting through. So that's good for Xerox to be able to, again, put themselves in position. But they've already qualified. So now it's just going to be up to that last matchup in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, it is. And we'll obviously get to that after, a quick break. But of course, LGBT and Copyright Name already waiting there into the mix. Xerox waiting on that matchup for Top Cougars and Grand Plats. And I'm excited to see, of course, how that matchup goes through because we already talked about Grand Plats. Kind of an underdog, unknown name, which we at the very beginning of this show, were like, there's very little teams we know of in this qualifier. Like you normally qualifiers, the more we get into it, we're like, oh yeah, I understand. We've seen those teams before. We know what's going to happen, right? That's kind of the simplicity of that is we know how these teams play. We know how the series are going to develop. But in this case, we don't really know how underdogs or how the underdogs of Grand Plats are going to do. As I just saw it develop, Top Cougars takes the win. So it is going to be 2 finalists facing up against each other in the semifinals, Top Cougars and Zero X, Team Copyright Name and LGBT on the other side. We're going to take a quick break, though, before we get to the semifinals. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, to the ATLOpen series. We are, of course, here with qualifier number 3 to see how everything is going to develop for the rest of the tournament. My name, of course, Troy Pibb Welling. Next to me, Trevor Confused Caribou, McNeil, and we pointed the right way for once. I even thought about it preemptively, but we are back for the semifinals. Of course, both matches are going to be streamed for the semifinals, and then a best-of-5 grand finals to finish everything off. The best news of all is what we talked about in the quarterfinals is that copyright name and LGBT are both guaranteed to go to the finals next week. That is the best news for them because Top Cougars team and 0x have both already qualified previously. I think, to be fair, this is a different Top Cougars team. So I don't know how that whole situation is going to handle itself, but that basically means that at least one of these teams for sure guarantees, the second one probably, but we'll see how it pans out. But of course, we're going to start with LGBT and team copyright name. Like I said, there was already some hype earlier on for team copyright name and Simplex. So we'll see if they can continue their breeze here in the semifinals.
Yeah, and after going through in the quarters to beat Vo, who we saw and started today's event out with, Mevo and Krivo both, a pretty solid team. That is, I think I'd put him now in the same category as a team like Lovely Gar. I think I'd give edge to Lovely Gar in that aspect. But a team that's consistently quarterfinals qualifying capability, but never really enough to get beyond that. So the fact that team copyright name has now exceeded past where Vo is, I think is a really good start for them and for a team that we haven't seen. And on the other side, LGBT, as we mentioned, a team that has been the first team almost every single round to advance to the next one, meaning they're probably winning their series decisively in 2-0 fashions, which I think would now set up for a really good matchup between these two teams that we have not seen. And I'm excited for this because of the fact that these are two teams that we will be seeing again next week on top of the two teams on the upper half of the bracket.
Yeah, that's why I feel like this matchup's even more important to kind of gauge how they play against each other, especially since they're both probably guaranteed to the finals next week. You get a little bit of action there in which if they do somehow see each other next week, they know how each other plays. But also the winner of this is going to face one of the top teams in the tournament going into the next week. So that is something as well that's really important is that either one of these teams that wins is going to have a lot of experience going into next week. We already talked about, just the amount of experience like Top Cougars 0x has just in general because of how many times they've played in the qualifiers. And obviously with their repeated performance in recent past, it's pretty easy to say that they're some of the best teams in the tournament and can continue that reign in this month's adventure. But we will see as we get into game number 1 of team copyright name and LGBT how this is going to pan out. Darklight does get a shot on goal, but a quick save. Nice save from Aegis right there, but not able to get that on target, as that is where we might see a huge difference in how teams play is the way they handle demos and bumps.
Yeah, and a really good reaction by Copyright there is to be able to cover and realize that potential weakness, and now you have to cover the goal after the demo. And then now realizing the physicality of what this series might be, getting a mutual demolition on the backside outside of this play, but seeming a little scrappy here to start for both of them. And opportunities on both sides, but just haven't got that final touch across the final setup to get a good shot on goal. But obviously, the way that this is going to go between these two teams, I think not only is going to be able to spell out a lot for how we can expect not only this series, but the next series and the finals, as you touched on, to go, as well as this is a really good sampling because 50% of the teams that are playing next week, we're going to see play in the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a fun stat to look at and a fun thing to watch because you kind of already get that example of how things are going to turn out. And like we already saw earlier in round 3, Top Cougars and Night Guard, another one of those finalist matchups you could see next week that we already got the pleasure of being able to watch this week. So there's a lot. Nice slotted shot right there from Simplex, but a great save. I don't think it was credited, but he at least got it out of that corner from Aegis, I believe, in the back into the net. But no one in the back of the net now as Simplex is able to just breeze that one by for the first goal of the game.
Yeah, being able to just take that one out of the air. A little bit of a mistouch there, trying to pass it down to your opponent or to your teammate there onto Darklight, but a little miscommunication left that one open. Simplex just said, "Thank you very much. I'll take this," and give them the first goal of the game of the series and the lead. If they're going to build on top of it or if LGBT can find the answer.
Yeah, 3 minutes left. Of course, plenty of time to play into this best of 3. Darklight tries to get this one and carry it off of the backboard, but unfortunately not able to find anything there. And We'll see as Copyright Name goes back on attack here. Good challenge about halfway closer to midfield here. Darklight's going to bring this one back up again with a nice air dribble. Copyright Name's not going to be there in time. Gets that one past him and caught lacking in the back of the net. Darklight's going to be able to just bring this one from his side of the field to the other and be able to slot this one by. So I'm wondering if Simplex, I think Simplex was just caught in an awkward position there, not able to find an easy save.
Yeah, and a thing to mention out of this one, and a thing that we haven't talked to you all day, because of, as you said at the very top of the show, we don't have people like Vela and Bunchy in this. We don't have Galetti's. We don't have a lot of those teams over there. I mean, we got Smokes that keeps coming back in this, but have an EU in a matchup here in this one with, of course, Team Copyright Name being the initial host on this. So theoretically speaking, ping advantage should be to the blue side.
Right.
And I think the sense that it is going so even between them, I think might actually bode better for LGBT, considering they're not host of this game and they're still absolutely holding their own.
Yeah, that is actually something really important to look at, because recently in tournament events, EU teams have been dominating these tournaments so far, and most of the time, semifinals and finals, it's just only EU teams. So, I mean, this is a really good. That's a really good point to make. Is that this first game should realistically be in favor of that EU team right now. Darklight with the fake though is not going to be able to get it though past one. Just didn't have the space there. I mean, didn't have a fast enough shot to continue with that one. Age is going to try and just bring this one past, and that's a great air dribble. Had a lot of control and was able to just keep control of that one all the way to the right side of the corner here.
Yeah, real simple. Nothing too crazy. Just keep that one on the nose and keep it in the air to be able to take it to the upper 90, give them a go-ahead goal. Minute and a half to go, and I think this is a very interesting back and forth game, and I think the way that also this is looking is going to be very interesting to see how this develops further into this bracket, both for today and for next week. But for the time being, these two just kind of scrapping it out here and not really doing anything too like in a matchup that we're going to be able to see. You know, when we see Xerox and Smokes and Kieran playing, there's going to be a lot of aerial dribbles and attempted flip resets and musties, just because that's who they are. You know, they play for the flair.
Yeah.
This one, very boiled down, simple, straightforward Rocket League that is just football back of net, win game.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, Rocket League in general. And simplest forms, football and back in the net, you're chilling. You're having a good time. We'll see if Team Copyright Name can do that, though, as they are now down a goal in this game. They have 45 seconds to be able to find that. Simplex finds an easy save, but he runs out of boost in the meantime. So he does have to find a way back into this one. But LGBT's definitely controlled the cadence of the game for the second half, really, as far as how this is developed. He just with no boost here keeps control of it and is able to stop on a dime to try and turn that one around, but not able to actually get that into the back of the net. Still, I mean, 20 seconds, you're still looking for that comfort goal here. No matter how much time there is, you always want that 2-goal lead. That is a really dangerous shot, and that's going straight in.
Okay.
Nobody ready for the counterattack shot, and this has happened plenty of times before. When you overcommit on offense, he just didn't have enough speed to challenge that, and because of that simple mistake, brings it back to even a piece here. Even Stevens had 15 seconds left.
Yeah, a real interesting twist of events is the way that this will go, if anyone can, because of just how back and forth it's been for the entire duration of this game. I mean, we haven't seen a team really step up and take control of this one. So the last 12 seconds, not a lot going on. That challenge is going to be sending that one awry. Darklight not going to be able to finish that possession. So our second overday is underway between these two in our semifinals.
Simplex going up, almost gets that one to go in off of a lucky pinch. 12 seconds in, and already a dangerous shot to defend from LGBT. As we see a decent flick here, going to the top right, just barely misses. As Aegis is just, he's probably going to want to take that one back, especially in overtime, and in a very important game in the semifinals here. Of course, like we said, these two teams almost guaranteed, if not basically guaranteed, the top two spots in the finals next week. But that being said, you still want to try and win today's qualifier, get some money on the top of your hands, and also get that automatic guarantee to go into the finals next week. As you see, Aegis is trying to go for that early challenge, just sends this one back to his teammate, trying to communicate here. Darklight going for an air dribble, but Simplex way faster than him, able to find the challenge first. And now it's just kind of been a lot of back and forth. No real crazy chances besides that immediate one about 6 seconds in.
Yeah, both of them had about one chance apiece. And then since then, we've just kind of been scrapping around in the corner, around midfield play. But I think Copyright Name doing a pretty good job at trying to keep possession down on this side of the field. And a good, decent save there to tip it up over the top. And I look for counterattack for LGBT. But again, the ball just kind of gets caught in the corner and fighting for possession. They finally get it across, but there's nothing with the follow-up there. So instead, back to the air. Decent center here. If Darklight can get the shot on, get the double touch, goes wide again. So another little bit of an opportunity there for a team to get a shot off, and instead goes to the side. Now we're going the other way.
Going the other way indeed, as this is starting to become a full game basically at this point here, about halfway through. But A just gets a nice flick. Not over him, but the bump comes through, but a save from Copyright Name comes just in time as now Darklight gets it past the one, but on the backboard, Copyright Name once again there to save the time being. We see midfield boost, save, Simplex caught in an awkward rotation, but missed once again from the corner. Good bump comes out from Darklight, been very physical this game, and Copyright's just not able to react in time. First game goes to LGBT, in which we already said as well, is that this was on EU first, which I believe was Team Copyright Name, correct?
Yes.
And
he should be the host.
Since that was Team Copyright Name, and that was their server, switching over to NA now, I don't know. It might be rough for them to try and mount a comeback in game 2.
Yeah, certainly might be a challenge there for them. Really good job there by Darklight to be able to bump Simplex off the ball, steal possession, and then just stop momentum on a dime to 180 and get that shot over the top and be able to put them in. We take a look at the replays here from that game, but a very long, extended game. Of course, all of our replays today powered by Microsoft ATL, but we went, extra 2.5 minutes in overtime, and just a lot of back and forth, not a lot of really flashy play from either team. And it comes down to a 3-2 scoreline, which tells me that this next game could also go either way if we don't see LGBT really step up and assert themselves on their own server.
Yeah, I mean, that was already, like we were already talking about in that game, if the orange side wins there, if Aegis and his team, LGBT, takes that game, suddenly it's a way different series than before. And it makes it, going into the NA servers now in game number 2, where LGBT it's technically has the advantage going into it. Well, while they already have the advantage in the series, like this theoretically should just be a 2-0. And unfortunately, Simplex and Copyright Name will drop out of today's qualifier in that case. But of course, it's all a coin flip at this point, I guess. I mean, you saw how much of a coin flip it was on EU. So if you flip that back over to the other side, we'll see how different it is. But we've talked about this before in previous qualifiers as well, is some teams have more experience playing on higher ping than others do. So it is much easier to make that switch sometimes.
Yeah, and I don't know why you would ever have experience playing on another server. You psychopaths, and that is the thing I play on
95 on US East.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm now a hypocrite in saying this because I've started playing League of Legends on EU West again, but that's not the point because it's 160 ping. It's awful. I hate it. Thank you very much. Anyways, going on to game 2 between LGBT and Team Copyright Name, with LGBT taking the first one, and what was a seemingly slower paced game between the two of them, now seeming like we're going to try to open things up with a little more quickness in this one and see if we do get that server host to assert themselves in this game.
And we'll see how this game starts, of course. Darklight with a nice flick gets that in the top left, and it already starts LGBT with that lead that they were ever so looking for in game number 2 here, as they already lead the series like we're talking about. And also to note, you're seeing the Supersonic Legend tag. We didn't know how some of these teams were going into this tournament, so it is nice to know that there are teams that are underdogs in this tournament, or unknown teams in this tournament that are of the the SSL rank, of higher rank, that can contend against some of the best teams we've seen week after week here. Because like we talked about as well, as Top Cougars also started out as that kind of a team as well. We're like, yeah, we don't know who this team is. Suddenly we saw them in finals, 6 weeks in a row, and we're like, yeah, they're probably pretty good then. That is embarrassing. Not sure what happened there, but Darklight just is able to slot that one in the back as Yeah, Simplex just caught lacking, and I mean, both of them just kind of caught lacking. Just an awkward goal in general.
Yeah, and awkward, I think, is a good way to describe it, because it's just like, all right, well, I guess it's a goal then. Not much more to say about it, but the fact that you're 60 seconds in now and we're seeing a little more aggression, a little more life from LGBT to try to get in this position. Like, I mean, the pacing has definitely increased between one or the other, and this shows a level of discomfort on an EU server from the LGBT team, which tells me also that their matchups all the way through have all been NA versus NA matchups. But now with the 3-0 here, we're minute 20 into this game, and LGBT looks like a completely different team on their own server.
Yeah, they do. It does just look like a completely different team. 3-0 within a minute and a half makes it very easy to predict kind of the outcome of this game, I would assume, because Team Copyright Name is already at the disadvantage ping-wise. So to make them have to mount a comeback of 3-0 or more potentially means it's even harder for that team to try and find a way back into this game, in which, of course, they are going to face an EU team no matter what in the finals as well. So they are going to have to go back on that server switch, in which whatever team wins Top Cougars 0x, like, might just be a 3-0 with... That's not disrespect to either one of these teams, no matter who wins the series, but with how I've seen the pace of play, that's a beautiful shot by Darklight, by the way. The pace of play differential in this best of 3 and in the other best of 3 we're about to see is going to be huge. So I think going into the grand finals, it might be a really rough matchup for whoever wins this series.
Yeah, and I think to watch what we see LGBT doing here, obviously, again, pace has increased. You know, they're playing a little more aggressive and a little more up front with this one. Good shot there. Aegis kicked it in reverse from the get-go and realized the potential attack coming in, but Simplex is going to get enough on the backside to be able to get that across the line. But watching what LGBT is doing here in this game and increasing the tempo, I think, is a thing that they have to carry through regardless of server they're playing on. You can't play conservatively and scared against a team on an EU server just because you're not going to get anywhere, especially when you play against teams of the caliber of Top Cougars who will just punish you regardless of what server you're on.
Yeah, they will. And like we've already talked about, that's where experience comes into a factor and why we think it's so important that teams have experience. And like Top Cougars, who have played multiple times on NA, obviously on their home servers on EU, they are very used to how this has developed so far. Even on NA terms and on NA ping, they can still easily play up to their top standards. So, yeah, it is going to be a different factor because, like we've already talked about, if LGBT, we know it looks good on NA servers, but looks all right on EU servers, suddenly you go against Top Cougars 8-0 on their EU servers, and you have to face, at least 2 games in that best of 5 on EU servers will almost be a guarantee in that case. So you have to be able to tighten that up. That's just in general. It doesn't matter what team you're facing. From that best of 3 we're going to see, that other semifinal, it's going to be a difficult matchup. You are absolutely the winner of this is the underdog in that series because those are 2 of the best teams we're going to see in the grand finals, yet alone in the qualifiers today.
Yeah, very interested to see how that will fare in that matchup as well. As expected at this point, it'll be LGBT who, once again, will take theoretically a 2-0 series in this one. And, even a shot like that where Copyright Name has an open opportunity just puts a little too much velocity down into the ground, so it basically kills all momentum of the ball, doesn't get a chance at all to get shot on target. But, watching what LGBT has done, just by spectating the bracket alone and seeing them advance every single round as like one of the first, if not second team, bodes well for what they can do on their own turf. But again, as said time and time again, and it's a point that will get brought up again in the finals, when they are not on the NA servers, the play obviously takes a hit. There is an inhibiting factor. There's a hindrance to them that they just can't play their game, which is, from what we've seen game 1 to game 2 of this series, substantially different.
Yeah, it will be substantially different, and it's going to be a fun watch in general to see how that is going to pan out, of course. But as we see this game develop, 35 seconds left. Aegis is not even playing anymore. LGBT is kind of secured. They know this semifinals is going to be theirs. Darklight has looked fantastic in this series, though. If at least there is a statement to anything, That is an unfortunate miss. Darklight's going to go off the net here and redirect that one back towards the other side of the field. But yeah, like I said, Darklight has looked really, really good in this series so far. He has 3 of the 4 goals in this game. I think has 5 shots total, so been really accurate so far in how that's panned out. And it's looked really good, but they are going to need to carry that over, obviously, into the next series against a very good Top Cougars team or 0x. It doesn't matter who it is. It's going to be a tough matchup, so they have to bring their A game.
Yeah, definitely going to be very interesting now as we're going to find out which one of those 2 teams will move on after we get one more for the road. Score the goal, leave the game, and we are out with a bang. A 5-1 scoreline. LGBT going to win this semifinals 2-0 on the game scoreline. So, with all of this, the setup, this is going to be now the conversation that we take it into is to, can LGBT find enough juice in the tank to be able to take it out against an EU opponent? Because I do believe same 0 and Top Cougar. I know Top Cougars are for sure. 0, I'm still iffy about because I don't know wholeheartedly, but it is going to be a very difficult matchup compared to what we've seen them play now. Again, we've now set the minimum threshold because we saw a team that beat Vo. We've seen a team now that's beaten them. So we kind of have an idea as to where they really lie on the scale, the grand scheme of things, but still waiting for that extra development of can they hang and can they handle it?
Yeah, we'll see if they can. Let's, of course, take a look at the series replays powered by Microsoft ATL. A lot of that, of course, LGBT finding a lot of early goals and late goals in game 1, of course, to get them back in the lead here. But led this game and the second game for most of the series. First game went into overtime on EU servers, in which Aegis and Darklight still found the win on option servers. And, of course, wouldn't have been in overtime if it wasn't for that long-distance goal from Copyright Names. So, I mean, at least got them back in a chance at this one, but couldn't actually find a way to take the win there in overtime, as it ended up switching back to the NA servers. Darklight and Aegis just from the get-go were the better team in this game. Didn't really look like a much difference there. Combining right there for a really beautiful pinch as well for goal 3. Leads some light into the grand finals, knowing that they can pull off some things like that, but no matter what, it's going to be a tough matchup. Darklight, of course, with a fantastic redirect there off the backboard as well.
Such a good shot.
Had some really good shots this game, really good goals, and just has to be able to continue that. That's the main thing, the main topic, main point of concern for this game at least, is going to be that area of concern is, can you stay consistent going into the rest, into the grand finals especially.
Yeah, we saw, decent showings there from both of them as to, Simplex had that good shot off of the deflection from the defender. There was glimpses on both sides, but I think really the storyline of that was the command and control that we saw from Darklight +1 to get into this. I mean, like, they just really started to get into the groove there, starting very early on. Aegis, both of them, and they just played so well to start that second game off. So now we'll see if that's going to be enough, because we're going to be spectating very closely, not only us, but they should theoretically be as well, between this game here of Top Cougars and 0x, Xerox, whichever you want to call them. Very interesting matchup here, because technically this is probably the 3rd series Top Cougars has played today that is a grand finals caliber series. So by no shortage of imagination, Top Cougars has had a very difficult path to get to this point, but who else is going to do it besides Smokes and Kiernan? And now we'll see if Zero can find an answer to finally put a stop to them.
Yeah, we will. It'll be fun to watch and to see how well these two teams play. Of course, both EU semifinalists, so should be a very simple best of 3 here as far as ping and terms of that goes. No switching server hosts or anything, so it is going to be all fair game and love is war. But like we said, this is another grand final game in the semifinals. Top Cougars just keeps playing grand final-esque games throughout this qualifier, and looking good. I messed that up. It's fine. But it's fine. We're going into the semifinals. Top Cougars and 0x is going to be a fantastic matchup nonetheless. And of course, LGBT is going to be waiting in the finals for whoever wins this game. Like we've already talked about, it is a rough game no matter what. Whoever wins this series, LGBT is going to be facing a difficult challenge, especially considering they are the only NA team that's made it this far. They're going to have to go on the server switch once again and have to deal with that back and forth. So we've already seen Top Cougars be able to easily handle that, and 0x as well, that it'll be very fun to watch in in the grand finals. But of course, to get there, we have to go through this game. Top Cougars and 0x. Considering they've both, won a previous qualifier, Top Cougars obviously has won a lot more than just one. Kind of similar pace as far as this series will go. It is a best of 3, but I kind of you have to look at what's going to be the way for realistically, from my standpoint, it's how is 0x going to win this, because Top Cougars by far has had the toughest matchups. They've played insanely well in those matchups, and to come into this matchup with some of the hardest games out of their way already, in which 0x had to go through a very easy quarterfinal matchup to get to the semifinals, which is a huge difference from what you saw Top Cougars have to deal with to get here from round 3 and quarterfinals.
Yeah, and I think that is a thing that potentially carries over into this. You talk about how they kind of coasted through their quarters matchup to get it here compared to Top Cougars. I really didn't. They had to fight and tooth and claw since we're like round 2. Like, we talk about the teams that they've played since the very beginning of today's qualifier. Like, they have earned every step of the way, and they've been fighting the best of the best to get this far. And I think that is the big question, is what can Xerox do to be able to stop this team? And because I do think that there is a pretty significant edge to Top Cougars, not only just for individual play, just from history, from the track record that they've done, the success that they've had in every Atlanta Community Open. I think that it is just so difficult to stop these two players regardless of who you're playing against. And we've seen glimpses of how to stop them, break down that individual play and isolate them. Don't let them start working together either. That's probably your best bet. But even that we have seen is not enough, because they're still here.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's simple as that. I mean, they are still here, and, you take 2 qualifier teams already. You take, no disrespect to Stealth or Toxic, but you take the 2 best players from both of those teams that already qualified, put them on one team and see how well they work together. And this is the same team, 2 of the 3 that won the entire 3v3 month last month, Kieran and Smokes and Toxic, I believe. So, I mean, it just shows you how good this team already is. And they're starting off with a bang, as Top Cougars is going to find that first goal of the series with a lot of 4s on the clock. Nice, nice and easy there. But we'll see how this still will develop, as Top Cougars is going to find a pinch mid-air. The one way we've seen easy enough terms that Top Cougars has been scored on is due to their over-aggressiveness on offense. Sometimes it's not a double commit, but nonetheless, it is still the fact that they both commit really aggressively, and it doesn't matter when Kieran is just putting absolute bullets into the back of the net.
Yeah, and just watching the way that they've played, they're just picking up virtually right where they've left off in the last series. I mean, Kieran and Smokes both, we know they have the individual skill level, but all day long, it's been the Kieran and Carry, by the way. Like, Smokes, who? Never, I don't even know who that is. It's been Kieran and 1v2 all day long. Complete, well, some sarcasm in that sense, but Smokes has done pretty good to set up Kieran, just laying it up just like that, and then Kieran will come in with the finishing touch. So a lot of the final scores are coming from Kieran, where Smokes will get the assists, get the bumps, get the demos, etc. But watching the way these two have played all day long, you don't expect them to change, because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And there ain't nothing with this duo that's broke.
Yeah, and they've clearly shown how dominant they are in general, and no one has really come to showcase their skills against them. Like, it's been really difficult for other teams to match it, because how are you going to match a team that is this good? It's very difficult to try and do that, especially on top of that, they're consistent. It's not like they have, a bad stretch of games every now and then. Like, they're constantly at the top of their game most of the time. Like, it's insanely hard to do, and also extremely impressive that they're able to do it back and forth, because, it's not something that you see every day, is a consistency like this from these two teams, especially considering they both play with different people all the time. They both qualified with a different person. For them to just come back and be able to, reenact it together and just keep scoring Kieran and Carry. Well, a lot of that's just Smokes, of course, but they are just playing so well, and it's realistically like, can anyone stop them? It's not, no. Does 0x have a chance? Can they stop them? Because so far, no, they can't.
Yeah, and when you have a team as good as Top Cougars in any form of whoever's on the roster any given week, because they can change it up and they still have the reliability to play consistently. And I think that's one of the strongest assets of this team. And you're not going to find a team that can. Like, there's no one that we've seen in any of these events that can match not only consistency of it, but like what else they can do. I mean, they've just been on it every series, every event. I mean, they've had a couple of one-offs where they didn't win, but they, as we said, had a 5 or 6 week stretch where they won every qualifier and 2 months of grand finals. Like, starting in qualifier 3, they won the grand finals in June, I believe, and then they won every qualifier in July and the finals in July. And then they got second place in the first qualifier in this month, like, and now here they are on the doorstep again of another grand finals. Like, this team, if they're on, like, even like, they don't have to be playing at their best. If they're somewhere in the middle of their best, no one still can't keep up with them. Like, it's just ridiculous how impressive this team is.
It's true. Yeah, it is very difficult, and we, already kind of talked about how can you match this team's pace. It's very difficult. It's not just as simple as something to fix. It's hard. You can't really match them because they're so fast paced. I already talked about one of the simplest terms and one of the easiest ways that we've seen them get scored on in the last few games was their over aggressiveness on offense, and kickoffs has been a weakness. Also, we saw them start off at a disadvantage in their last series due to kickoff goal, but I mean, Mizuki finds one here, brings it back within 2, so it's not all out of the box just yet. But it is there are some simple ways to get past this team, and that's just, you have to find a way to exploit that. Try and get that on repeat, trying to get them, catch them over aggressive, catch them, not being able to rotate back, because while they don't make mistakes, they are on top of it most of the time. Those are going to be the simplest ones that you can find a decent scoring chance from.
Yeah, and the fact that, I mean, to give credit to Zero here, they get 2 goals back and you keep it within fighting chance. And again, both EU matchups, like, this is realistically feasible for Xerox if they could find a way. And Kieran trying to get a little cheeky with it. Smoke's going to rocket that one in and get the assist. Technically, Ghost should get that assist. That's a goal scored by Smokes, but a little bit of a miscue on that one, trying to get that ball out. But now we have a 1-goal game with a minute 26 to go, and it's just got a little more interesting.
Yeah, Kieran must have read the chat and saw do a musty flick, so he tried to go and do that right down the field immediately as it happened, and didn't actually work out. He actually did a flick the wrong way and ended up scoring on his team. And, that is a crucial goal because they are only up 1 goal now after winning a 3-goal lead at one point. They are now in range where they could lose pretty badly. So they have to be careful still, of course. With 1 minute left, there's a lot of time for 0x. And it's not like this is a team that's just been, given goals. This is 0x. They've won a previous qualifier. They're a very good team nonetheless, and they can showcase that, in the last qualifier. But, within that 1 goal, Kieran can't find the goal, but Smokes is able to find it at least. And now the development comes through.
Kieran has a teammate?
Can they keep this 2-goal lead? Yeah, right. Kieran Carey goes where?
Who? Never even heard of this guy. Smokes. Has he been here all day? Like, where's he been? But he showcases there to give a little insurance goal, and in good time as well, because to give credit again, Xerox, they are a team that has earned this position. They have absolutely worked to get here. But now with the insurance on top, Kieran's just adding a little extra. Gonna be able to get that set up, and that's what we talk about. It's the Kieran carry, right? Like, he's getting all of the glory for scoring the goals, but that is like 95% of Smokes. Just kept that ball on the wall and kept it above the defenders, and just in perfect time, just dropped it off on a silver platter for Kieran just to push it across the line.
Yeah, it's simple terms. Like you said, it was just simple enough at that standpoint. So we'll see if that's something that they can continue to do going into the next game, because this one's probably out of the lock now with Top Cougars' 3-goal lead in this standpoint here. How does 0x go in combat game number 2 at this point? Because obviously it was a close game. You had a little bit of trolling here and there from Kieran and Smokes, which they tend to do often. They do like to do things like that. You just see the turtle from Mizuki waiting for that one to just drop right in at the end. The hashtag Kieran carry, 6 out of 7 goals once again. Smokes, not one to be outshined usually, but Kieran looks fantastic. We talked about him when we first saw him in the 3v3s last month. is like, yo, this guy looks kind of sick. I mean, Smokes never played with him previously. First time we saw him was in that 3v3 tournament, and he looked fantastic. And now he's just proving why he looks so good, why he's been so good so far.
Yeah, and we've seen Smokes, who's done a phenomenal job at recruiting this tournament, getting Toxic in, as well as Kieran, you know, two of the greatest, like, individual players. Like, I think, if to quote Best, I think he said they were, like, both top 100 solo players in Rocket League. So, like, Smokes definitely getting the best of the best here. We take a look at the highlights from that opening game to showcase why Kieran's that good. As you said, 6 of 7 goals. These highlights powered by Microsoft ATL. It's just a decent balance of Kieran getting good shots on, good reads, but also at the same point, Smokes getting these good setups and watching a nice little ricochet off the wall where Kieran's just going to follow up every single time. And this is the right way. I mean, this is how they play. This is everything that they want to do. They've got the formula figured out, and it's worked for them all day long, and there's no reason for them to stop it anytime soon.
Yeah, there really isn't. I mean, they've looked so good. They continue to look that good in this series. Like it was very close at one point, but that was, you know, off of an own goal, so you can maybe give that one back. But this was a very close game nonetheless until it started to bleed a little bit. And that's been the case against Top Cougars a few times. Is, you know, it's been a close game. It's been a close game. Last minute and a half, suddenly they scored 6 on us, and they just, like, you just can't stop. Once they're starting to bleed you out a little bit, they start to continue to score a lot. So that's the biggest thing against this team that we've seen, is the strongest defense will win out usually. That one game, or that one series we saw against Stealth's team, or Sneaky's team, sorry, in either it's probably a month away from where we're at now, but that was one of the series where an incredible defense from Sneaky's team led him to a best of 5 and led him to the 5th game on a comeback. It was a credible series in which it really mattered all about defense. And obviously when a team is so aggressive offensively, if you can stop them on offense, they're going to struggle a lot, because that's the way they're used to winning games, is by scoring so much and being aggressive on offense.
Yeah, and I'm not going to take away anything on the other side, because Kieran, on top of being one of the best offensive players and one of the best solo players, Kieran has showcased a phenomenal defensive presence and done very well on the defensive front. This one going yard, honestly. Finally, the setup, Kieran gets just the nose on and puts it on target. Smokes just says, "Thank you very much, I'll take that," just for the insurance. And yeah, Smokes gets his one, cash out. Now the rest of the way, it's all Kieran all the way. 10 seconds in, they get their first one, is the start the Top Cougars were looking for.
Yeah, it absolutely is. We'll see Smokes just dirty on the flip there, on just landing at the end of that one. Smokes finding a jump off the ceiling, gets the flip reset. Doesn't even need to use it, though. Just turtles his way in, and that's so hard to read if you're Mizuki, expecting him to flick it up off the flip or something. Like, you're expecting something to happen. And when nothing happens, it makes it very difficult. So we'll see how this, of course, is going to develop into Top Cougars' plan. But as of right now, winning this best of 3 pretty convincingly against another team that is going to be seen in the grand finals next week. So if that just kind of showcases you the skill level of this team, they're insanely good, and they shouldn't be taken lightly, because this is basically a finals matchup next week that we're seeing right now. So if this kind of gives you a statement on how good Top Cougars is, they look this dominant against a team in the finals next week, it might just be history again.
And the question that we were asking and talking about earlier on in the stream, you know, both of these players are on a different duo that have already qualified for this position. So very interesting here. Finally, to get one back. Mizuki just going to pop this one up for Elite Ghost, who's going to come rocketing in and punch that in after the demo. Good stop there by Mizuki to keep that in play. A good follow by Elite Ghost to be able to get that in before Kieran can get back. But talk about Kieran and Smokes, both of them already qualified on another duo, so don't expect to see this iteration of Top Cougars next week. This is not going to be the duo that they roll with, because Kieran, more than likely, going to be with his teammate on Stealth, the Gambling Problems team that won last week's qualifier. And you're going to see Smokes with Toxic in the Top Cougars squad that got 2nd place in the first qualifier. So just because of the sense that they're here and performing so well, just showcasing that they are pretty good regardless of who they're playing with. But this dominant that the dominating performance we're seeing here will carry over to next week, but just not with these two players.
Yeah, and isn't that insane that there's 4 or 5 people that Smokes play with that are all just insane and good enough to help him qualify. Maybe the Kieran carry is a thing, but maybe Smokes just knows some good people in the Rocket League scene, because he constantly finds some gems and keeps finding these people, like you said, top 100 players, that can constantly keep winning these tournaments. That's a pretty bad miss from Smokes, though, as that's going to lead to an equalizer here from Mizuki. Yeah, that simple terms, just Smokes missing out on that one. Sometimes it's really hard to read the backboard, so unfortunately just not able to get up there in time. Maybe ran out of boost, not sure of the case, but nonetheless, that still means that it is equalized, and still plenty of time, just short of 3 minutes here in game number 2 for 0x to try and mount a comeback here.
Yeah, and watching to see what they can do in this, Xerox, they've been relatively close, up to this point as well in the last game. They were down a goal. The own goal helped after this one. Now they take the lead here at this point, so Xerox still in striking position. And as much as we've talked about Top Cougars and the players that they have on, there's a reason that Xerox made grand finals in their first qualifier, and they got second place out of it because they eventually would lose to Kieran. So this is a little bit of a redemption arc here, trying to beat the opponent they could not beat in the last qualifier to put them in position. But after an immediate kickoff, Smoke's going to take this one and lock it back up at 3-3. This is just an interesting showcase between these two teams, again, as we talk about and beat this dead horse, that we'll see play again next week, more than likely. I would not be surprised at all to see these two again duking it out next week.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. They're both obviously fantastic teams. They've showcased in repeated performances how good they are in general. But I was still expecting, not a landslide victory, but I was expecting Top Cougars to be able to win this series out in relatively easy terms. Musty flick comes through from Kieran, back over to a pass from Smokes, and he slots that one in. That's kind of what I was expecting in general from this team, but still, a very good team, and they're able to showcase on both sides, Mizuki as well, with 0x, able to showcase how they are good enough to be in the finals, and they can contest against Top Cougars, who, like we said, is without a doubt, I would probably say the 1 seed next week. I'm not sure on the full collective finalists as far as the top 8 teams, but I think it's easy enough to slot them as the number 1 seed just because of their run last month and even going into this month as well. They pretty much just win whatever qualifier they're in. So kind of shows you how strong the Top Cougars variance, doesn't matter what team, any Top Cougars variant is strong enough to win the finals.
And I think that, not to take anything away from Xerox here, I think this is just Top Cougars playing at their ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Top Cougars have, I think, the benefit of the most difficult path to get to this point here. The reason that they're playing so well is because they have played 3 or 4 of the best teams in the entire bracket. 35 teams registered today, and Top Cougars has played like the top 4. Not including themselves, because you can't play yourself, but they've beat every single team to get here. That is a team that competes with them as the number 1 slot. There's no doubt Top Cougars is number 1 overall in the Skillshot community. Period.com in a story. I will not be opening the forum to any questions. Moving on.
Yeah.
They're beating the rest of these teams.
No questions. Yeah, and by far,
no one else to argue.
Especially, even today. Today shows you that as well. They today alone beat, probably at this point, since they're beating 0x, 3 teams that could qualify for the finals or in the finals already. If that doesn't show you something already in how good Top Cougars is, with how difficult this qualifier matchup-wise has been for them to just be breezing by into this grand finals once again, it's insane. This team is just so good. Smokes, a ex-novice, intermediate professional, I don't know what he calls himself, but played COD for money back in the day, still does, I think, but switched over to Rocket League and has now found an immediate success in Rocket League, at least in these tournaments so far, and is just able to show the smoke show this game, especially with another goal right there, his 6th of the game. Kieran Carey gets to have a break this one, as Top Cougars is most definitely going to advance into the grand finals here this week.
And just out of thinking of it now, Smokes needs to find a duo named Mirrors. We have a Smoke and Mirror. But
yes.
it
or
makes
in the
sense
water.
now looking at. I'm too young to make that reference. And
That's a good song. Yeah, you're right.
But, anyways, I'll forgive that one. Yeah, what Smokes has done here, and why is the Kieran Carey show, is exactly the point that you brought up. And I didn't want to call him out for it, but Smokes is just a Call of Duty player, right? Like, he's not a Rocket League player. He's not good at Rocket League. Nothing that we've seen ever from Smokes playing has told us that he's good at Rocket League. I don't even know why he's here, honestly. Like
100%.
that's not even him. Like, Kieran did all of that, and Smokes was just like the second time this game just said, I'll put my bumper on.
Like,
it.
yeah, in the simplest terms, Smokes is just dog water. Like he's really just gets carried week after week, and it's really sad to see. Let me just add
what this
Smokes.
tells us.
Trash can.
He's really good at
just
recruiting players.
letting Smokes know in chat as well while he's focused on this game, going to the grand finals once again. Yeah, he's like, okay, so as people that live in Vegas, if you know who Bishop Gorman are, Smokes is like Bishop Gorman. He recruits at a high school level in which no other high school recruits. So automatically the team is just better. And since Smokes just keeps recruiting some of the best talent that he could find, in simple terms, it's pretty easy to win week after week.
Right.
Of course, we're joking. At the end of the day, Smokes is like fantastic. Kieran, of course, amazing pickup that we've seen last month going into this month as well. And once again, qualify for the grand finals once again. Let's take a look at the series replays powered by Microsoft ATL. See how Top Cougars finds a 2-0, a pretty convincing 2-0 against one of the finalists they're going to be seeing next week.
Yeah, and kind of surprising in the sense, this is one of those games like, as we touched on before, if you're going to beat a Top Cougars team, regardless of who the roster is of Top Cougars, you have to be playing at your ceiling and hope that they're playing closer to their floor. But as I stated, the path that Top Cougars have had to get to this point today has just made them play that much better all day long. And I don't think there's a team that registered here today that was going to beat this team. And I don't think that looking forward
and they
into their
faced
finals
everyone that
matchup.
could have beaten them.
Yes.
So it's not like it's not like we could be stuck here thinking, could anyone have beaten this team?
Right.
No, they couldn't have. They beat every single team that had a chance.
Yeah, there's no what if about it. Like it's just about this sense that they've been playing so damn good all day long. And watching this one, I mean, don't get me wrong, Likos and Mizuki had some good shots on. They had the lead, albeit very briefly, about 4 seconds before Smokes did this and gets the goal back. But like they were within a fighting chance. And then after that, it's just like the way that these two have been playing together all day long with the setups, with the passes, the rebounds. They know the formula. It's been working so well for them. And that's the reason that they seemingly decisively won this series against a really good Xerox team.
Yeah, realistically, and why it puts them into the grand finals, of course, against LGBT. It is going to be an NAU matchup, unfortunately. So back and forth servers means that's going to have to be the case. We are going to start out on NA first. So if LGBT wins this game, don't be as surprised as you could before because they are on their server advantage. But if they lose this first game, suddenly it's real bad for the series because that means that it is in full control of Top Cougars at that point. So realistically, this first game is going to say a lot about how the series is going to go.
Yeah, and I think that is a thing that we very briefly touched on in the last time we saw LGBT play because of how slower they played on an EU server. There was a drastic difference in their play style between game 1 and game 2 of their ultimate 2-0 victory. So while they did, again, win a 2-0, similar to what we saw the Top Cougars do, it was not as decisive, not as convincing. And the fact that you have to flip servers when you have a team with Smokes and Kieran, not like they're just comfortable regardless of what server they're on. So I think that this is going to be a full opportunity here for Top Cougars to decisively take this in a 3-0. I wouldn't expect them to see LGBT take one away from them. And the only caveat to that, the only asterisk I'm going to put on that is if, and please don't do it, I hate even bringing it up because I don't want it to happen, is if we see some battle buses or some scare, like just some dumb stuff.
Every time.
That's the only
That's
way.
why I said
I think they take the L.
They're such a good team, but man, Kieran and Smokes trolls so much sometimes And like they trolled last week in the semifinals, in the grand final. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where they are. They will still troll a best of 5 series.
Won that game too.
And they'd rather lose a game playing with Scarabs instead of winning the grand finals 3-0. Like it's funny. They're a funny team. But back on top of it, Smokes finds a demo here, gets beaten to the ball, so has to try and figure out what to do here. But I am very much intrigued at the pace that Aegis and Darklight are going to play, because they have to play at a very high pace. They have to challenge a lot. We've already seen that is going to be the case here. Good challenge there, and Kieran smartly, with little to no boost, waits on that challenge, because, I mean, that's in the Rocket League, a lot of 50-50s go down like that, and you get scored on because, of that 50-50 challenge near the net. So Kieran, knowing that, just goes for that immediate challenge, able to continue with that one and stop it from going in. So good start for him. Smokes just waiting that shot. Darklight couldn't really do a whole lot with that considering the amount of boost he had. So at least getting it on target is all you can ask for. Goes for the challenge against Smokes once again. We're about a minute in, and that's just a beautiful shot. Kieran with the speed and the cornering, able to find the first goal of this series.
And I think Darklight is going to be the difference maker in this game single-handedly. Like, if there is a chance that LGBT come away with this win, I think it has to be on the back of Darklight, because we saw really solid play from Darklight that was just disrupting of the offense, got in the way of the defense, and was really the playmaker on the other side to let Aegis, come in with an assist or with a shot on to get the goal scored. But that is a big if, because they have to be able to get into their own groove and their own playstyle. Smoke's going for the flip reset. Is able to draw the defender out. Darklight can't even get up to contest Kieran, who's already in the air just waiting for that. So as soon as Smokes gets bumped off, Kieran just takes the handoff. Thank you very much. Slots it in. And a 2-0 lead here is a great start for Top Cougars and concerning on the LGBT side.
It is, yeah. We briefly touched on that as well at the start of this game, is that it is on the NA servers. So LGBT, respectively, they should have the first lead in the first and third game because it's their servers. I'm trying to figure out the word I was looking for. It's like reactively, but not reactively, and not respectfully either. There's a word there, but realistically, they should win games 1 and 3 because they're on that ping advantage. And Rocket League is a huge thing. Most games, ping advantage is huge. More specifically in like FPS games, but in Rocket League, the ball does do some crazy stuff on some higher pings, so it is hard to react to it at a faster pace of game like we see from Top Cougars. So it's probably something else that's pretty difficult for LGBT as well. I mean, they're on their own servers right now, but when Top Cougars start to play that extremely fast-paced offense on their own servers, it might look uglier than this game is going right now.
And I think we're seeing right here what LGBT need to do to be able to try to take something back. I mean, even with the deflection like that, Darklight gets in a position where it's a slow roller, but you win that 50, you get that shot on. Like, I really like what I'm seeing LGBT do right here, because they are pressing the envelope, they are creating pressure, and they're finding the angles, and that's exactly what we have to see them do consistently, to not let Top Cougars get off onto the offensive side of the ball and just let them have their way. Because we know the Top Cougars offense can produce. We know that Darklight and Aegis can create opportunities as well, but they have to maintain that pacing and that tempo. And after an awkward little flip up on the kick, Darklight gets another, and all of a sudden we are gridlocked at 2.
Yeah, suddenly there is a reason for LGBT to be pretty happy right now and how this is turning out in consideration to how it was going for most of this game. So Top Cougars going to have to still mount a comeback. And like we already said, they're going to have to mount a comeback anyways because this is on the NA servers. So Top Cougars having a 2-0 lead was really nice, but now that they've kind of thrown it away a little bit, it becomes a little bit harder for them to mount that comeback. I say that Smokes with the speed still able to almost slot that in top right corner. Darklight with a good position here could have a shot on net. Does so, but Kieran's able to find the save. And now with taking on 2 minutes, LGBT with full momentum now, out of in consideration to how the game was for over half the game, have a good chance here to try and take their first game, which they desperately need. We already talked about it. This first game is going to matter a lot to how the series is going to go. So if this does go in favor of Top Cougars, it more than likely becomes 2-0 Top Cougars, and then, a very iffy game 3. But if this goes LGBT's way, maybe it becomes 1-1, and suddenly the series is a lot more even. So it's a massive game on how the standing of this best of 5 is going to turn out.
Yeah, this is very important here for LGBT to take this game. Like, this is a crucial series game because, as you said, if you lose this one from that side, you can probably almost expect game 2 to go to Top Cougars in a decisive fashion, and then you're down 2-0 back against the wall in a series point because this is a best of 5, so it's just that much more difficult. So LGBT absolutely have to step up the game here and walk away with this victory if they want any remote chance whatsoever, even a percentage of a chance to avoid that back against the wall situation, because we know Top Cougars, regardless of server, can perform and just steal a game away on a moment's notice.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the scary thing about this team. But they can also make the similar mistake on the other end with Kieran and Smokes both aggressively try and push for a goal in the next 20 seconds here. They could get caught lacking on defense. And we see a great flick from Aegis. Finds it over Top Cougars here and is able to get that go-ahead goal for once. And now we'll see if this is going to be the case. If they can hold this, I mean, 18 seconds on their native servers. I mean, to play defensively, not too difficult.
But we know just how fast this other team can strike and how good they are on the offensive side. But good little deflection off to keep this on. But as long as the ball's on this side of the field, then that is a position of concern. That one gets by somehow, but see Smokes to catch. They're going to catch that one and send it long. Ball's on the ground. So LGBT actually do take the first game. They finally step up after about the halfway point. They increase the tempo, increase the pace, and that's their key to victory, is to be able to play at a fast pace on their server, because of the fact that when we've seen them on EU servers, they slow down drastically.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that server switch should be kind of interesting to see what happens. But game 1 over and out. Replays, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. Let's go and take a look at how that game 1 panned out, because it was a very strong start for Top Cougars and kind of looked like they were just going to coast to a win this game. But then in 2 minutes, it got scored on 3 times. So something happened with Top Cougars. Mentally, they're a strong team, so I'm not worried about that. But I think they might have just slacked off a little bit and weren't as confident in themselves or confident in their play as we normally thought, and weren't rotating as good as they've been before. So there's a lot of things that they've been capitalized on in kickoffs, especially. I've talked about this in the previous series. Kickoffs is a very easy way to score on this team. They mess up kickoffs quite often and overcommit on offense. So those are your 2 bright ways to get past Top Cougars here if you're going to beat LGBT, try and advance the series. And now we see a series lead for LGBT, which we weren't expecting in the first.
Not at all.
Just in general to have them take a game off of Top Cougars. So to have a chance now to try and not make this equal terms, if by some miracle they win this game on the second server, it might just be a 3-0 for LGBT, but that's a long shot on how they played on EU in their semifinal matchup. So we, of course, does all come down to this, though. That first game did mean a lot, though, for the series. Like we talked about, it was more than likely going to lead to 2-0 after this game for Top Cougars. Now it might just lead to a 1-1, and there's still that extra NA game in the mix that could bring them back to the advantage, but they are going to have to go back to EU. And I believe since it started NA, it finishes on NA. So if by some miracle they bring this to the 5th game, they have a chance to take the series overall.
Yeah, it'd be very interesting to see what happens in game 2, because this is a very interesting point that you brought up as we get into kickoff here. If somehow LGBT do end up winning this game, then with that 2-0 completely changes the conversation we're having, because we talk about Kieran and Smokes. We expect they can win on NA. We know they can, regardless of who they're playing against. We know they can. We know they can definitely win on their home server. We've seen LGBT struggle on EU in their first series. Granted, it was a 1-game sample size, so it's not a lot to go off of. But just from what we saw, the expectation is there that it's going to be very difficult for them to win this game. But if they manage to, all of a sudden, totally different conversation where they are in complete control of the series. But now instead, we're going to see a very quick strike back here from Top Cougars, where they're going to get the first and second goal, both in the first 13 seconds. And this is more what we'd expect to see from the offense of the Cougar side.
Yeah, this is getting kind of ugly, kind of fast as far as how this game is going so far. 2 goals in 15 seconds, and Aegis and his teammate just looked kind of off guard on EU, which we kind of talked about briefly in their semifinals matchup where they did have to face another EU team. They did look much slower. The game looked much harder for them to win, which they did still win that game, I believe, but it is a much different pace of play, and I was interested to see if they could match Top Cougars on their NA servers, which they did. They obviously won their first game, but the biggest worry for me was, can they even get close to trying to top Cougars on the EU servers? With how fast they play, it is very difficult on higher ping to be able to match that level.
Yeah, and just being able to get one back here. I mean, this is, I think, a different LGBT team that we saw even on the EU servers in their first series, because they've now really upped the tempo and upped the pressure on this other side. And watching this team play, I mean, this is, I think, the way that they need to. They have to be able to try to match, as insane as that sounds, try to match the pacing that Top Cougars set, because Top Cougars has some of the fastest tempo gameplay that we've seen ever. And
yeah,
that is a very difficult thing to do, but that's the way LGBT have kept themselves in the game, in the mix. That's how they ended up winning in the last game. But I feel like the ping difference is enough of a hindrance to the LGBT team that they're probably not going to find the W if they're not playing on their servers.
Yeah, and that third goal kind of tacks on to that, just getting more and more score on. Like we've already talked about, once Top Cougars start scoring, it's very difficult to stop them from continuing that momentum. Once, with how offensive they are mindset wise and as a team, they don't care how many goals they get scored on. Their worry at the end of the game is, can we score more than the opponents? It doesn't matter if they score 16, we're going to score 18. Like, they're just always on offense, and that is a very close save from Kieran, but does find it at the end of it all. Nice bump coming out from Aegis to at least push that away a little bit. But we do have a potential push up here from Smokes. Good challenge midfield from Aegis. Is going to bring this one back. Does find a really important demo as well. Now it should be a 2v1. Pass goes through top right corner. Darklight's going to find that, and now they bring it back closer once again. I was seeing some people getting disconnected here and there, so hopefully that'll be fixed. But as of right now, we're still good. It looks like we're still good. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. 3-2 is going to be the case here. As we see, you didn't see anything. Men in black status right now. You did not see a thing. Smokes is going to flick this one back up. But as we're talking about, 1 goal is now just a differential. Kieran misses, and that should be the tying goal. Smokes finds a very important challenge, almost tying this game back up. LGBT, I have to give them props. The fact that they're even competing in this game is showing a lot to me.
Yeah. It definitely is making a statement here for what they're doing in this game, in this series, because of just what we would expect to see from Top Cougars and their play. But all of a sudden, going back the other way, watch the shot on to the left of Kieran. That is an equalizing goal at the halfway point, and I give credit to Darklight. I think is the player that is the difference maker here in this one, and has so far showcased just that. I mean, there's great team play going on the LGBT side, but obviously the only person that matters is the one that scores the goals, right? As we've seen from the Kieran and Carey hype train. But Darklight doing such a good job here, and I think to really press the envelope and continue to pressure Smokes and Kieran to not let them get comfortable. Yeah,
and I mean, it's a surprising show of how good LGBT is so far. The fact that they're able to get this one, and that's a miss once again, and LGBT finds the lead for game number 2 on the EU servers. And now I just have to apologize to Aegis and Darklight for just underrating them, I guess. Because I realistically thought this might be like an 8-0 game on EU for Top Cougars. Like, I was expecting it to not even be close, not even be a shot for LGBT here in game number 2. But somehow they have brought this back and have taken the lead in a matter of a minute. And now it's up to Smokes and Kieran to try and work their magic, which, is not too far out of the reach here, out of the realm, because, of course, these two are offensive minds, and they can both create pretty easily. The Kieran and Carey show could just be turned on by a switch once again. But that doesn't mean that Darklight and Aegis have to stay consistent on defense here to not allow that to happen. They have to challenge early and quick, and that's the hardest thing. And you see an early challenge leads to a rebound nonetheless. Kieran is going to find the equalizing goal.
Yeah, Smokes just get a nice little bump up and then a double commit on the defensive front to leave it wide open for Kieran coming in from midfield. Good shot on, good opportunity. And again, Smokes did something there, but who cares? Kieran scored the goal. So moving on, offense is the only thing that matters in this game, not assists, because you got to score points to win games, and assists don't score you points. They just score you points on a scoreboard for a score that doesn't actually matter. But locking it up at 4 goals apiece here, a minute 15 to go. This is, and I'm right there with you. We obviously undershot what LGBT is capable of doing. And, we saw glimpses of it, but just from the lone game that we saw them play, it was not nearly enough of a sample size. And almost with a great 1-2 from Smokes and Kieran to get that go-ahead goal. But LGBT has done a tremendous job to put themselves in this conversation.
Yeah, they sure have. It's been incredible to see how they've been able to manufacture this comeback. And now that it is equalized, of course, there is still a chance that Top Cougars just stays aggressive and finds an open net here. As you see, it's probably going to be right now. Kieran finds the top right, or finds the bottom right corner. You saw Smokes pushing out the opponents here right about now. Aegis was going for boost. Smokes did miss the bump, so there actually was a chance here if Aegis had enough boost. Well, he got the 100. There should have been a chance, realistically. Aegis could have found that save, but it was just a really good placement, nonetheless, from Kieran. So that made it very difficult for Smokes to save. Smokes by himself now in the net.
Oh.
Another missed bump leads to a missed opportunity, as LGBT could have found an equalizing goal there. With 20 seconds left, they don't have much time to create that chance.
Yeah, and now it's so important just to make sure on the Top Cougar side that they don't get hyper aggressive like we know that they are. A little bit of a double commit there in front of the net, but they're still able to recover and be in position that they're okay. Now it's going to go the other way, and that aggressiveness on the offensive side where LGBT has to get the equalizer is what opens up the door the other way. So 2 ticks left, 2-goal lead, and we're down to a best of 3 once again as Top Cougars going to take game number 2 as we will head back to the North American server side.
Yep, and we'll see if LGBT can win their side once again, because if that's the case, they'd be up 2-1 in the series and look pretty decent going into game 4 if they are up in the series. Of course, I mean, the fact that was even a close game is mind-blowing as we look at the replays of that extremely close game, of course, powered by Microsoft ATL. Game number 2 is done. It did go to Top Cougars, but not as convincingly as we thought it might be, especially on the server switch over to EU. So that is something important to note, is that, sure, the beginning of the game, it looked really nice. Top Cougars were kind of controlling, and then within a minute's time, you can look at the clock now, 3:05 to 2:30 now. 2 goals given up in 30 seconds. They got another goal there, 30 seconds after that. So it was a lot. They bled out on defense a bit, so they have to be careful going back onto EU server on game 4. Of course, after this third game, they have to be careful not to let that happen again. They have to be able to keep consistent on defense as well as offense.
And as close as game 1 was on the NA server, this is still a coin toss here between either one of these teams. And now that we have seen both of these teams can perform on the opposite server, I think that this completely opens this wide open. I mean, it's a very interesting conversation now because of we were so convinced that Top Cougars were going to take this in a 3-0 fashion, convincingly, not even a question mark about it. Like, yeah, this is it. Like, who can beat Top Cougars? Literally nobody. They beat everyone else that could probably beat them. And LGBT showed up here to prove us wrong. And they've already done a pretty good job with that game 1 victory. Now going back to the NA servers, like, they know what they have to do is to up their tempo, up the pressure that they apply on the defense of Smokes and Kieran, because that is, if there is a weak link of the team, it is going to be on that defensive front, and what we've seen, Dark Light and Aegis be able to do. But you can't let Smokes and Kieran get comfortable on their offensive side, because they are, when they get hyper aggressive, very efficient at scoring.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there is ways to counter it. We've seen in the past, because of that hyper aggressiveness that they so want to maintain, that is their play style. You can easily counter that. It makes it very easy to find some counterattack goals, to find them kind of caught lacking on defense a little bit. So that will be the case to see in game number 3 if they can continue that offensive aggression that kind of keeps them in every series. Realistically, I mean, that, as dumb as it sounds, I already mentioned it before, but if you could just keep outscoring your opponents, like that's all you got to do, right? That's the simple as that. You just have to be able to outscore the other team, and they can leak 5 goals, 6 goals a game, but if they can score that much, which they very clearly can, I would say their overall
Yeah.
goal average is probably like 4 or 5 in tournaments. They can do that, so they have to, once they can lock down on defense, which I got to throw back to the 3v3 tournament last month in which Kiernan looked fantastic on defense. And it was constantly that anchor and net for them. They have to just bring that over into this series here and try and just lock down on the NA server, especially get that lead going to EU game 4. Suddenly they're in a much better game, much better pace for the series.
Yeah, I think this is as you make a really dumb point to say score more goals to win games. I'm going to make a really dumb point to say that this is a series defining game, right? Because now the winner of this one is all of a sudden on that series point to in the best of 5. So the fact that it is on NA, I think, is going to be a little more comfort for Aegis and Darklight. I think it's a little extra added confidence boost for them that they can be in a better position to really take advantage of this situation. On the other side, I think I agree with you. I think Kiernan should probably put a little more emphasis on the defensive front because we know that he's got the offense down today. Like, that's check the box. Like, that's no question about it. Scoring like 6 or 7 goals every time. It's not a concern whatsoever. But flip it to the defensive side, try to slow down the pressure that Darklight and Aegis are applying. And that's interesting because we've never talked about a win condition for Top Cougars to play defense.
Yeah, right. That's true because they really don't have to sometimes, and I think there's just a random sunlight. Let me fix that real quick. I didn't fix it at all.
What is wrong with you?
Why does the sunlight exist? I'll fix that as we get into the next game. For right now, I'm going to be nice and bright. But yeah, like you said, Top Cougars is one of those teams that you don't really put them on defense too much because they don't have to be on defense with how good they are on offense overall. So that's something that realistically we're going to have to try and see if they can fix going into the NA server because they've looked decent on the NA servers. They obviously looked really good on the EU servers, but surprisingly, so did LGBT. So they can't really let this go to a game 4 in which LGBT has a chance on that EU server to win the series. Like, they cannot lose this game in order for LGBT to have a chance. That's why they need to take this. That's why we said game 1 was so defining, was because it was like, if game 1 goes the way of Top Cougars, they win the whole series 3-0. The fact that it went LGBT's way meant that LGBT has a chance to win game 2. If they somehow win that, they win the whole series 3-0. That game 1 was so important, and now is why we look at game 3 again as a super defining moment again, because that is where we see that differential being, once again, we're back on the NA server. LGBT should win because they're on their home server, but if it does go the way of Top Cougars has the advantage going to game 4.
Yeah, and I think that, again, it's the same conversation just 2 games later, right? It's like, if you win this, to go over to the EU servers. Now we know that Darklight and Aegis can both compete on the EU servers.
Didn't fix anything.
Yeah, no, you didn't. Now
we know they can compete on the EU servers. I look like an angel right now.
Well, sure. Now we know they can perform on the other side. Then it's a different conversation because if they do win on their domestic server, then they can compete on the EU side, and it's going to be close, and it's going to make Kiernan and Smokes have to play that much harder to be able to try to stay in this one. Because right now we've seen Darklight and Aegis really step up their game, where it seems like on the other side, Kiernan and Smokes have kind of kicked it into cruise control, and they're just honestly chilling. Like, they don't. It is what it is. They're here for bragging rights, a little extra prize money. They've already qualified for the finals for next week, but this is a bigger statement from the LGBT squad compared to what is happening on the other side from Top Cougars. So again, game 3, if LGBT wins this, I would probably have to favor that because game 5, I think, would be on the NA server. I think LGBT then becomes a favorite to win this series.
Yeah, and as we try, the reason we are trying to stall so long is that I think
we're not trying,
Top Cougars is complaining about ping. It is working as the sunlight hits in my eyes. But Top Cougars once again working to try and figure out ping disadvantage in some sorts, which I don't know why. This is like the 30th week they've played, and they've done this a couple times in which you should expect that you're going to have bad ping. And changing the servers is not going to help too much unless you're talking like US West to US East differential. That might be a little different, but they're trying to figure out the server situation there once again, which is why we talk about oh, never mind. Well, see, I just get informed it's ping. Smoke says it's packet loss. Packet loss is way different than ping is. As a person that lives in Vegas, packet loss is something great that all of us experienced.
It's awesome.
Cox
We love it.
Communications, the best service provider in
Stop.
existence. Yeah, that's not an ad, and that never will be an ad. Cox is the worst service provider I've ever had. But yeah,
Stop.
packet
We're gonna
loss
get in
is a way
trouble.
different ping. No, I'm not. How? They suck at what they do. As far as packet loss in Rocket League, it is a different conversation than ping is, because packet loss is even worse than ping drops at a certain point, because it's just straight up like you disconnect or the ball goes into a completely different place than you thought it would be. It's really awful. So I do understand that point and why they're trying to get the lobbies figured out. And I hate how you just said, just go find the packets. You can't, if you're simple as that, if you're losing packets, just go and find them. It should be much easier for you to play better in the future. So I'll have to keep that in mind next time I lose packets.
You're welcome. That's a pro tip from me to everybody else. If you ever just lose packets, just go find them. If you're hardwired to your router, then it's somewhere between you and your router. If you're using Wi-Fi, then it's probably evaporated by now. It's gone, because I think that's how packets work. But yeah, it's not difficult. Just go find them, and then you'll play better. Score more goals to win games. If you win 3 games in a best of 5, you have a better chance of winning the series. I got all kinds of really good advice, life advice, if you want to follow along. Of course, not only on the Skillshot social media train, on Pibcast, on Confused Caribou, but we got all of the greatest intel you could ever ask for. But we're getting into game number 3, finally. Hopefully we found
we are getting to game number 3. Hopefully they found their packets. Hopefully they find a win for their sake as they switch over to EU side. But that's just a little tap-in from Smokes, as he wants to get this series done in 4 games. That is just a double commit on defense, leading to that to be the case here, as Smokes does find that to go in. And, I mean, they're going to start the lead as of right now, and it'll be a nice case for them to try and win this game here, as all they have to do now, forehead, hold the lead, don't get scored on. I'm always filled with really good tips and tricks as well. So, maybe I should just make a YouTube channel on, tips to help you win, and just say, like, outscore your opponents. Just don't let them score. Just keep your lead once you are winning. I think it would bang.
We could start a life tips podcast and just have all kinds of nuggets of wisdom.
Like, have you ever wanted to get skinny? Just try eating less, or maybe work out sometimes. Like, the life tips you could get from me and Trevor are quite astonishing. But minute gone into this game, this of course is the grand finals. Best of 5, third game in, both teams at 1 apiece. You can see in the top left, Darklight and Aegis are on the server advantage right now. They are on the NA servers. Darklight with no boost could have been in a desperate situation there, but nobody on Top Cougars available to challenge that one. Darklight, we have seen him carry a couple of good air dribbles beforehand. Does do so again. Missed the boost spawn in the back right corner, but now it is just Darklight trying to flip for his life with 0 boost. Does it find that challenge at least? And now you see a good challenge here from Kieran. Let Smokes have a little bit of challenging his way. And another good challenge means that gives enough time for Kieran to get some boost. So while that was awkward for the time being, it did set up Kieran a little bit to make a play in which he didn't really do much with that either. Now it's just awkward. So what I was saying beforehand, as it was a little bit of play creation, now it's just awkward from both sides. Ooh. That should have been a goal potentially from Smokes, but he finds it off the right post and not in. Yeah, it is. That's not, though.
That's not. That's a real easy angle. You just got to get to the ball first, and Smokes does just that. Gets in, gets the goal, gives him a 2-goal lead here. The initial shot on, decent setup from Smokes off that right post, but yeah, such a tough angle to get the initial one. At least gets the follow-up, but yeah, that last 45, 60 seconds was a real awkward turn of events. I mean, it started with Darklight with no boost, just had to dodge out of Smokes on the demo, and then it was a real weird back and forth on both sides where just no one had any boost. But now, after a little bit of a reset here, awkward kickoff, continue the awkward ways, and another goal to the top Cougar side.
Yeah, 3-0 on the NA servers. Once again, I mean, we saw LGBT come back before, though, so they have a chance here still. But Top Cougars looking in at top form right now. You're seeing them connect on the pass, already communicating that as well. Smokes finds a really nice pinch into the corner, but a good challenge. At least he's able to have Aegis have a chance there at midfield. Smokes just waiting to see what the creation is going to be from Aegis here. Aegis just playing smart. I mean, that's exactly what you do. When you see an opponent kind of, you know, pre-jumping or trying to counter what you're doing, that is a close shot that Kieran gets saved off of a little bit here as Aegis brings that one down. Looks like Aegis didn't have enough boost to continue that one into the net. Kieran gets a shot on goal. Darklight going to find a save. But a lot of back and forth between these two teams so far on game in game number 3.
Yeah, LGBT's had opportunities. I mean, that shot from Darklight quite literally hits a direct 45 angle off the upright and theoretically should have gone in. Would have had a little bit of a favor from the pixels on the bar, but just doesn't get anything. So instead remains scoreless. And they've had the opportunities. They just haven't got anything better than that lone shot Darklight has. And instead, minute 40 to go, a 3-goal deficit is a very difficult position for LGBT to try to claw the comeback. But I think Top Cougars now in different form here, where it seems like after the packets were found, they're doing a little bit better. Smoke's going to carry this one in. Faked right, went left, gets the goal, 4-0.
Yeah, now this should just be Top Cougars' game to win, in which we say this is an important game. Aegis just leaves the match, and I mean, no matter what, this is a win game. They can't remake this at any point, so they are going to get EU once again for the next game, and Aegis is gone. Darklight's not playing. I think they thought this was a best of 3.
It might be.
I'm not exactly sure. But they do get they obviously get host. No, we know it's best of 5. It's just, did LGBT know that is the question, because they just left as if that was just series over. They're like, all right, it's done. Game 3's done. We lost the series, but it is of course 5 games. Now we go back onto EU, so realistically it should be full advantage. Ball in the home court here for Top Cougars as they go onto their EU servers once again. And now we wait to see if Aegis and Darklight return, or if they're like, yeah, we'll take that. Second place is fine. We had our chance, but yeah, of course, especially when you have a game already in the series, if you win this next game, you're back, I think, on NA servers. As far as if it just goes back and forth, I'm not sure how they're going to decide that for game 5, because that's always kind of a weird situation, because technically they're not seeded the same, so it's not like top seed gets, you know, the advantage and gets the host advantage in or, you know, home advantage, whatever, because they don't have, it's random seeding. So it'll be interesting, but of course we do have to get to game 5, so that is in all what we're waiting on now is how game 4 is going to pan out. It is on EU servers. It should, with how well they just played on the NA servers, Top Cougars should take this rather simply, rather easily in game number 4 here. So we'll see if that is going to be how it pans out. But of course, we thought the same thing in how the last EU game was going to go for game 2, and it was very close until the end where they got a little bit of a lead. So yeah, it's still hard to predict in which we thought it would be much easier to predict that going into this grand final.
Yeah, we thought it would be a decisive 3-0. We thought game 2 on EU would be like an 8-0 scoreline. Yeah. Instead, it was like a 5-3, and LGBT won game 1. But yeah, I think going into game 4, there is a recognition, right, that it is a best of 5. You know, they know that. Aegis just left, and immediately Darklight's like, yeah, just go next. Like, they recognize it. That game's out of reach. It's 4-0, pushing 5.
I respect that.
Not going to happen. Yeah, it's just a concession and understanding that you're not going to win that game. The concern with it is now is there a mental tilt kicking in, right? Like, hopefully that's not enough to offset their mental state. And now they have, because they should know they still do have a fighting chance, right? Like, because they won game 1, they held their own game 2 on the EU servers, but now, you know, with game 3 as slight as it was, they have a fighting chance for game 4, even if it's not on their servers. So I think that there shouldn't be, and it's a lot easier from the outside looking in, there shouldn't be a mental tilt, but they've also been playing Rocket League for like 4 hours. So I get it. You know, these things add up over time.
Yeah, they do, and we'll see. And like you said, that mental thing is actually pretty big going into this game, especially because it is on EU, which means automatically LGBT is already going into this like they have the advantage. Like that's kind of unfortunate, and they
Yeah.
just lost pretty badly on their own server. So there's a lot of mental things that go into this, which is why we talk so highly about having a good mental in a tournament or just in general. I am for one not one with a good mental sometimes.
True.
So once you go down like that and it starts to get in your head, it starts to collect, it starts to kind of rot in your brain a little bit. You're like, they have the series advantage. They're up 2-1. They now have the ping advantage. They're on EU servers. And if we lose this game, we don't have a chance to get into the grand finals or to get into the first place, at least for this. They are already guaranteed a spot in next week's final, which is nice. I mean, at least you have that. So that kind of offsets that tilt a little bit as far as how the series
Right.
plays out. But, it's nice to win an extra $75 for the qualifier. And seeding doesn't matter next week as well. That's going to be random. So it's not like they're going to go, the first place seed puts them in an easier matchup next week because we're going to see some tough matchups next week without a doubt, just in the first round.
True.
That's just how it's going to work out. I mean, you have the top 8 teams of the month face each other. There's going to be some fun games next week. But we are, of course, getting game 4 ready and switching servers. That's why, these breaks last a little bit longer between, EU versus NA. Just teams in general, is that they have to switch servers back and forth, have to make a new lobby each and every time. Can't just switch servers, unfortunately. So hopefully that gets I guess it's not as big as an issue in Rocket League in general. I was like, hopefully it's gets fixed in the future. And I'm like, yeah, I guess not many people have to deal with that most of the time. So it's not a crazy big deal. But we have, of course, the game 4 of this best of 5. This is the grand finals of tonight's tournament, leading into next week, which is going to be the grand finals of everything. All 8 teams that qualified from the last 2 weeks, 3 from last week, 3 from the week before, and then 2 from this week's event, qualify for the finals next week at a prize pool of $500. I believe $375, I think, for first place. So top 3 payout in that, which is nice. You almost have a 50% chance. You just have to beat that first round. Have to get past that first round of really difficult matchups. If you get an easy chance there, you're looking pretty good for next week.
Yeah, and I think at that point, it's fingers crossed you don't play someone like Amberguesa or Top Cougars or Night Garden or gambling problems or Zero.
Or yeah, right. So once you pass all those,
you're way good. So like as long as you don't play one of those 5 teams in the opening round, that leaves with you make 6, but then there's team 7 and team 8. So you want one of those 2 remaining teams. So odds are not very favorable. There's a lot of really solid teams that have qualified here for the grand finals. And that's why we keep seeing them show up every single month. And that's why we keep seeing a lot of these returning names and faces that continue to have these stories of success. Top Cougars being one of them. Maybe not this iteration of this duo, but any team that's played, any player that's played under the Top Cougars name is a player that's got a storied success line in our community opens because of the fact that they've won like 3 of the 4 championships, the other one being part of the duo from Amberguesa, who won the first qualifier, and Jalading. So that's like, it's one of those 2 teams, but the fact that the other 3 teams have now continuously made grand finals, made it to like a semifinals, grand final state every single time they show up, it just makes the competition that much more aggressive.
It does, and obviously, like we've already talked about, the finals are going to be so insane just because of how that skill level is. Just that difference in skill levels. Like all 8 of those teams are at least Grand Champ or higher. Most of them are SSLs. Some of them are in the top 100. If you're looking at any team that has Smokes and a teammate in it, all of those teams are going to have some really good players. So realistically, it is going to be some really fun matchups, and that's also what I'm looking forward to. Is if they do stay separated, Kieran and Smokes, that is, if they go in with their duos instead next week, there's a lot of inner meetings of Top Cougars 1, 2, and 3 in the next week's finals that we might be able to see. So that'll be fun to watch, see those kind of friendly matchups go through. Hopefully we get some good banter like we saw this week. There's some good stuff that happened early on. In case you missed it this tournament, I would suggest going back to round 3. I think it was round 2. And just looking at the Top Cougars game, because there was some good times. But we are going to go to game 4 here shortly, and we'll try and see if we can get this game soon. TM as usual with how the series has gone, and we'll just we'll start. This is where we start talking about Sharks with Lasers. I bring it up every time. What's your opinion on some Sharks? Okay, sure.
Because I'm tired of listening to you talk about sharks to lasers. Why do two people like you and I have these billboards of foreheads, and we style our hair back to showcase
That's a
every
good point.
square inch?
That's a good point.
Why do people like us do that?
Why don't I wear hats? Why don't I do anything that could help me look a little bit better? That's a fair point. We are getting into this. It looks like Smokes just went straight out of kickoff and just completely missed. So this is what we're talking about, of them being so bad at kickoffs. Smokes just completely misses the ball to start, but we are in game 4. This is on EU servers, so realistically, you're looking at this one. Smokes and Kieran should be the favorites overall to win this game and to win the series. But LGBT did look very, very good in the second game where it was EU servers. So Smokes finds a demo, Darklight finds a save, and now ball continues to coast towards a midfield, which Smokes has to find a rotation back. Goes for a challenge way too late, though, but Kieran is going to have his back there in net. And Smokes is just flying this game. I have not seen him connect with the ball just yet. There he goes again.
It's about creating presence. Not much more than that. All you have to do is just be there. Doesn't mean you have to do anything. As we saw with the Kieran carries. Smokes is there, but he doesn't have to do anything. At least gets contact this time to send it up here to try to find Kieran. There's a follow-up. Aegis with a little bit of a miscue and a mistouch is actually going to set that one up promptly for Kieran on the follow. That's a shot on goal scored, minute in. Top Cougars have the lead.
And an expected lead, only a minute in. We, of course, are expecting them to take this series and take this game as they are on home field advantage. Anytime you see a Super Bowl, you're expecting, the team with home field advantage to have a good chance. Cough, cough, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But we are going to see how LGBT can combat this, because they did come from quite a comeback in the last EU game. So, you can't really count them out yet, which we counted them out completely at the beginning of this series. Now they've shown why they made it to the grand finals. It hasn't just been that easy ride for them. Great 50-50 challenge from Kieran, especially considering Smokes got demoed right there. That challenge is even more important because it gives time for Smokes to respawn and to get boost. Very nicely done from Kieran to get Smokes back on the counterattack here, in which they have a chance. Kieran is just being an absolute menace to society, but an even better save from Darklight to stop this from being a 2-0 game.
Really good attempted little flip there to try to get that one across, but after the demo, and Kieran's going to take this one, said thank you very much, take the money and run all the way to the bank. It's a direct deposit to the back of the net, and a 2-goal lead now for Top Cougars with a 2-1 series lead. 2 minutes into the game, 2s across the board. They're going to get a championship here today.
Yeah, 2-0 starts to become a little bit more unescapable, but they did, I believe, come back from 2-goal lead last time. So this is now up to Top Cougars. Can they maintain their consistency? Can they keep it going from here on out? That is what we saw them lack last time in game number 2 on their EU server. And as we see right now, Kieran's maintaining consistency. Smokes is trying to get back up to his level, but of course, Smokes' level is still one of the highest in the game, I would say. So once he gets back up to that, there's no stopping this team at all. And of course, you will see both of these guys with new teammates next week. So that's the even more fun part, is that, yes, they can dominate like this together, but they don't even need to be on each other's team in order to both qualify. So both insanely good players. Smokes is just having fun here. The WoW comes out.
Fun gamer.
Yeah, of course, we're fun gamer. Smokes here. Kieran tries to look for a challenge, but instead, LGBT finds a goal back. Now bring it back within 1 goal. And they did this last time, so that's why we haven't counted them out just yet.
Yeah, great little 1-2 there. After Darklight gets the read off the wall, pitches it straight to the awaiting arms of Aegis. Put the shot on target. Great little recognition of the aggression to put both the Top Cougars player on the offensive side of the field. No one can get back for defense in time, so that's just a quick pass, quick shot that gets them into a striking position, down a goal, certainly within reach. And that's why we talk about, even though LGBT not playing on their servers, and what we saw the first time they played on EU in the semifinals, we had question marks about them because they were not consistent whatsoever in their play style. But they've clearly made a point here that they can play on EU, they can hold their own, and only being down a goal, when they're right in position where they can strike back, but they got to make sure they don't give anything else up, especially backs against the wall in the series.
Yeah, I mean, they have a minute and 20 seconds to try and figure something out here, but that doesn't, of course, mean Smokes and Kieran are going to stop trying to create scoring chances. They have to be dangerously careful on their challenges, though, because that's where they've been caught lacking a little bit on the offensive rotations. Once they go for those challenges, and if one of them misses, it's an immediate counterattack opportunity. It just finds a good second touch there off the air dribble, but a minute left. Smokes with a pretty bad miss there, unfortunately. Kieran almost able to recover, but not in the slightest. That is an unfortunate, which probably should have been a goal for Top Cougars there, in a pretty desperate situation for them to score, because it is still a 1-goal game. That makes it 2 goals, 45 seconds left. Smokes is being a menace once again, but it does make it a way different game with they have that 2-goal lead with 40 seconds left.
Yeah, and I think they're doing a really good job at burning this clock. Just waste the time, keep
absolutely.
the ball out of the reach of LGBT, and don't let them counterattack. Granted, you see how much time they're spending on this side of the field, but yeah, taking the boost. I mean, look at Aegis. He's taking the ball downfield with literally 0 boost, and the only one he gets is the back boost spawn on the other side of the field. But Top Cougars takes not only the back boost, but the midfield away from him, and fortunate to save there, but still, the whole clock is gone. There's 5 seconds left. The ball's on the wrong side of the field. Demo into Kieran might be the opportunity they need.
I don't think you saw the Smokes disconnected for that 15-second time being right there. I don't know if you noticed that, but Kieran was in a desperate spot that he got demoed, and it was a 2v0 at that point because Smokes wasn't even in the game. Smokes reconnected very quickly to stop that from happening, but that was a really bad time to disconnect if you're Smokes. So yeah, maybe Smokes, I'm not gonna lie to you, maybe the packet loss is on your side, Chief, if you disconnected out of the games as well. But nonetheless, they won this series. Let's take a look at the series replays. Nonetheless, Smokes and Kieran once again being the top dogs of the tournament. Top Cougars just unstoppable, doesn't matter what variant it is. And at least Kieran was able to hold it down for the last 13 seconds, because that just means no game 5 for this team. I mean, it would have put them in overtime. Smokes would have been able to rejoin nonetheless, but would have been sketchy still. But a 3-1 series in which LGBT, I expected to not have as much of a chance as they did. So that out of this series is probably the thing I'm going to take the most out of, is that LGBT did look like they could put on a show against this team, and that is respectable enough. While they lost 3-1, they put up some really hard fought games, and that is all you could ask for against, without a doubt, the best team in the tournament.
Yeah, and to give credit where it's due, I mean, we do not see a lot of teams that hold their own against Top Cougars. Like, it does not happen that often, and you can just see that today, because we said every single team that had a chance to beat Top Cougars, they played. Like, it wasn't like they got knocked out somewhere else by a different opponent. Top Cougars played every single opponent that had the best chance to beat them today, and none of them could. And Darklight and Aegis put up a damn good fight against this team. What we thought was going to be a decisive 3-0. They took game 1. Game 2 was a hell of a scrap. And game 3, I think, was the outlier of the series. And a good concession to recognize that this isn't it, go next. But game 4, again, a really close game, even with Smokes out of this one. But realistically, all day long, Smokes was out of it, because where was he? It was the Kieran carry. They probably scored like 40 goals across like 3 different series. So Smokes, a non-factor start to finish, might as well have disconnected from every single game, and it wouldn't have changed anything. Top Cougars still would have taken the victory. All jokes aside, congrats again to Top Cougars, just because they played phenomenally, and they again won to add to their storied success that they have in every single Atlantic Community Open, because they've won probably about half the events, honestly, between qualifiers and finals both. But LGBT definitely made me very excited to see them play next week against the actual top 8 that qualified into the grand finals, because the fight they put up today really made a statement.
Yeah, they did. They looked really good, and I'm excited to see them in the IATL Grand Finals next week, which obviously is going to be the exact same date and time next week. The Grand Finals, of course, the top 8 teams that made their way through this month's event had to compete. 3 from the first qualifier, 3 from the second, and only 2 from this week. So obviously the second place team today, LGBT, and then the third place team goes through because 0x and Top Cougars were already into the grand finals. So that is nice for them to only have 2 teams qualify, and for both of them to make their way through. as that is going to be next week, of course, 6 p.m. Eastern time, 3 p.m. Pacific time for the grand finals. But Trevor, I want to get your final thoughts on everything. You know, obviously some really great matches, and most of those being top Cougars.
First and foremost, I want to make a very important point here to everyone that played in qualifiers, to everyone watching, and everyone that is a team that qualified for next week. Show up. Like, you don't have a chance to win if you don't show up. Last month, we had 4 teams not show. Like
4 of the 8. There's only 8.
Yeah, it's not hard. All you got to do is be there. So first and foremost, show up next week. But after what we saw today from Top Cougars, it just reiterates the fact that Smokes, Kiernan are good at Rocket League. And can pretty much beat almost anybody. So I'm very excited because of, as we talked about, the teams that have qualified with Amberguesa, Top Cougars, Night Garden, Gambling Problems, Zero, Discombobulated Banana, and then out of the teams today, which I would believe to be between Aegis and Darklight, and then I think the other one's going to be the team that they beat in the semifinals would be those 1-2. So between those 8 teams, I'm very excited to see as that will play out for next week, because it's going to be one of those days where any given day someone could win. We could see Top Cougars take an L round 1.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the scariest thing of all, is that it could be, and that's the best thing of all in the grand finals, is that they're really fun games to watch. But of course, thank you, Trevor, for joining alongside me for this month's action. I will see you next week for the grand finals. My name, of course, Troy Pibwelling. That was Trevor at Confused Caribou McNeil. Make sure to follow him as well. Thank you so much for watching. You do it kindly and very much so appreciate it. Of course, the 3 qualifiers done and dusted for today. We have the grand finals coming up next week. Be sure to look out for that. It'll be the same time, exact same date. Thursday next week. So make sure to see, we'll see you then. But in the meantime, we'll be sure to catch up on some more Rocket League. We'll see you next time for some wonderful ATL Open featuring Rocket League in partnership with CMG. See you then.